Besser wäre der Startplatz, den Alain Prost hat, das ist der zweite Startplatz, aber was soll's, für den Trainingsschnellsten wurde nur einmal seit Jahren schon dieser Platz bestimmt. Paddock Hill Kurve, vierter Gang, 240 Kilometer pro Stunde. Dann geht's hinunter, Hellwood Hügel, Druids Fahrnadel, zurückschalten, zweiter Gang, etwa 120, dann hinunter Graham Hill Kurve, das ist die Linkskurve, dritter Gang, 180. Die Cooper gerade, zur Erinnerung an den Cooper-Rennstall, für den seinerzeit ja Jochen Rindt gefahren ist. Dann die nächste Linkskurve, Surtees, 170 im dritten Gang. Dann kommt eine lange Gerade, zunächst Pilgrims Drop, wenn ich so übersetzen darf, die Senke der Pilger. Hier schlagen die Autos meistens etwas durch. Dann der Hawthorne-Hügel und dann die schnellste Kurve der Strecke, die Hawthorne-Kurve, fünfter Gang, Geschwindigkeit etwa 250 Kilometer pro Stunde. Ich höre, dass etwas mit Sprechgarnitur nicht in Ordnung war. Ich hoffe, liebe Zuschauer, dass Sie mich jetzt besser verstehen können. Wir sind auf dem schnellsten Teil der Strecke, Hawthorne-Kurve, Derek Minter gerade und dann die Westfield-Kurve, dann Dingledale, eine sehr, sehr schnelle Stelle des Kurses, allerdings auch eine sehr gefährliche. Hier hatte Johnny Cecotto, der ehemalige Motorrad-Weltmeister aus Venezuela, im Freitagstraining einen sehr, sehr schweren Unfall bei über 200 Kilometer pro Stunde. Johnny Cecotto gegen die Leitplanken, mehrere Knochenbrüche. 3,5 Stunden lang wurde Cecotto operiert. Es ist fraglich, ob Cecotto je wieder Rennen fahren wird können. Hier im Bild haben wir den Österreicher Jo Gartner, nur 27. im Training, aber wie gesagt, eine bessere Zeit ist er in der ersten halben Stunde des Abschlusstrainings gefahren. Allerdings hat man ihm diese Zeit streichen müssen, weil der Heckflügel um 2 mm zu hoch war. Sonst wäre Gartner heute nicht auf dem 27., sondern auf dem 23. Startplatz. 27. ist er.
75 laps, 196 miles. Piquet left front, Prost right front. Behind Piquet is Niki Lauda, behind Prost is De Angelis, behind Lauda is Rosberg, behind De Angelis is Warwick, and Ayrton Senna is on the left-hand side of your picture, 4 cars back. Into paddock. De Angelis sprints through. And they're all away, clear and running, an excellent start. Piquet leads into Druids. Piquet leads out of Druids, down into Graham Hill Bend. Then it is Alain Prost second, De Angelis third, Lauda fourth, Warwick fifth, and Nigel Mansell up into sixth position. And off goes the Ram at the bottom of Graham Hill of Philippe Alliot. Eddie Cheever was involved, and so was Stefan Johansson, the Swedish driver, in the second of the two Tyrrells, deputising for the injured Martin Brundle. Philippe Alliot gone off. There he was, getting out seemingly okay, out of the Ram-Hart. Excitement right in the opening stages of the British Grand Prix, with Nelson Piquet leading, Prost second, De Angelis third, Lauda, Warwick, then Rosberg and Mansell and Michele Alboreto. Irene Arnoux well down the field. And here are the tail-enders going through as the leaders come through into Clark Curve, out of Clearways, into the Brabham Straight, completing the first lap with Piquet building up a lead. And Eddie Cheever's very damaged Alfa Romeo, a dreadful season for Cheever since he went to Alfa Romeo from the Renault team last year. And Alain Prost is starting to close the gap between himself and Nelson Piquet.
Yes, Nelson Piquet will be very pleased indeed that he got a good start then. It was very important because, and we've got more action. We've got a fire extinguisher going off. All the smoke, that's probably the onboard fire extinguisher, or maybe the marshal's just giving it a bit of a blowout. They've just, you see, they've covered it in foam, and it looks much more spectacular than it is. The car was not too bad, but Piquet did not go as well as he would have liked in the warm-up this morning, which is the big point of the form in the race. The McLaren was a great deal quicker, and although he got the pole with a blistering lap, it would seem that he's going to be struggling to match Prost and Lauda for pace come the race. So it was most important to get off first so he could hold them up for a few laps, because overtaking is very difficult at Brands Hatch, but he wouldn't have liked to be behind having to chase them and keep catching. He's had some pretty bad starts this year, but he made a good one then when it really mattered. So now we see the first lap again. This was the incident at Bottom Bend, and oh dear, we got a bit of a three-car pile-up. We came in, we didn't actually have the camera on at the time. I can't see exactly what happened, but it was quite messy.
Indeed it was. Philippe Alliot mostly involved with that, out, and Nelson Piquet now on lap 3 out of 75, leading. Can he stay there? Alain Prost leading the World Championship by that clear 10.5 points. And there are those who say, and rightly so, that the championship is between the three men who are leading the British Grand Prix, those three men being Nelson Piquet very much on his own in the Brabham-BMW team, because Theo Fabi, his teammate, has hardly had a chance to play himself in, and Alain Prost and Niki Lauda. And it's that order now. It is leading Nelson Piquet, Prost right on his tail, second. In the second, Marlboro McLaren Lauda. Warwick in the Renault, fourth. The Angelis in the JPS Lotus, fifth. And Kiki Rosberg in the Williams Honda, sixth.
Piquet, Prost, Lauda im Augenblick, also der Stand des Rennens genau.
Yes, and we're starting to see already the superior performance of the McLaren chassis as it's been this season. Brabham's have got a very good car. Piquet, they've got arguably, and in my opinion, the best driver. But Prost was getting very close to Piquet, then they're starting to pressurize him, as we expected. And I think Piquet, if he can get a result and beat a McLaren in this race, it will be a really sterling effort, because he wouldn't appear to have as fast a car as the two McLaren drivers.
Dann den alten Brabham bringen lassen, mit dem er zuletzt die Nordamerika-Rennen bestritten hat. Der Wagen ist in jeder Hinsicht besser, bessere Kühlung, bessere Straßenlage. Und Piquet damit im Augenblick relativ mühelos in Führung. Piquet. Prost und Lauda. Zum vierten Mal bei Start und Ziel vorbei. Der Brabham PT53 von Nelson Piquet, ein aerodynamisch hervorragend gelöstes Auto. Sehr starker Motor der BMW, Vierzylinder. Reifen verwenden Piquet und die McLaren-Fahrer die gleichen, und sie haben nicht nur das gleiche Fabrikat, sondern auch die gleiche Reifenmischung ausgewählt, nämlich 05. Piquet, Prost, Lauda. Vierter ist Warwick. Fünfter ist De Angelis, sechster Rosberg, siebenter Alboreto. Die ersten Ausfälle, Johansson und Cheever ausgeschieden, und zwar mit gebrochener Radaufhängung. Es hat also offensichtlich zwei Kollisionen im Feld gegeben, zwischen Johansson, dem Tyrrell-Fahrer, und Eddie Cheever auf Alpha, und dann noch die andere Kollision, die wir ja gesehen haben, zwischen Cheever und, ich glaube, Alliot, in die ja auch Jo Gartner verwickelt.
Nelson Piquet very happy with his car, which is more than he was on Friday, because on Friday he was only 12th fastest in practice, and the Brabham team took the policy decision to change the setup of his car to the old configuration, as a result of which he immediately went up to pole position in yesterday's practice, and you can see how he's exploiting that. And Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian driver in the Toleman-Hart car, has passed Michele Alboreto and moved up into 7th place, past the Ferrari into 7th. And it's now Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick 4th, De Angelis 5th, Senna and then Alboreto, followed by Tombe and Mansell. There is Warwick, here is Mansell, and here is one of the Williams Hondas in the pits. It's that of Keke Rosberg. Keke Rosberg in trouble right at the beginning of the race, was in 6th position. And Ayrton Senna is there now. It's a blow for the winner of the Dallas Grand Prix, as the leaders cross the line again. Prost seems to be getting marginally closer to Nelson Piquet, who is nevertheless controlling the race from the front. And it's Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, De Angelis, Senna.
And just there going into Druids, you got a perfect example of what Piquet's got to do. He moved over a little bit. He didn't push on Prost, but he moved over to protect his line, taking the inside line into the corner at Druids, and that is really as close as Prost can easily get without having to be very brave and without Piquet making mistakes. So as I said earlier, Piquet now really is looking to drive quite slowly, which might seem a bit strange to you at home to think, but he really isn't in a hurry to get away from them, because he can't. His car is not quick enough. He has got to drive faultlessly and not make a mistake, because if you make an error coming out of a corner, you go onto the straight slurve and the other car can just drive past you. If you take it very carefully and you give it full power with the Brabham straight line speed, it's going to be very, very difficult for the McLarens to get past. And funny enough, Prost could be getting a little bit uncomfortable now, because while he's being held up in front by Nelson Piquet, he's got Lauda pressing him from the rear. So Prost has the unfortunate position of having to be able to watch through 360 degrees. He's got to watch front and rear all at the same time.
I think in our concentration on the race for leadership, we have not told you that the second of the two cars that was involved in that early incident with Philippe Alliot was Austrian Jo Gartner's Osella. It's only Gartner's second Grand Prix, so it's been a pretty tragic and unfortunate one for him, with his car smashed to pieces. But now, on lap 8 in this 75-lap race, the two McLarens pursuing hard Nelson Piquet. It's a three-man race at the moment, because they're a long way ahead of the fourth-place man, Derek Warwick, who's got De Angelis 5th, Senna 6th and in the points, Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari 7th, Patrick Tombe 8th, Nigel Mansell in 9th position, and not at all happy with his motor car in the warm-up period this morning. 10th is Boutsen, 11th is Farby, 12th is Winkelhock, then De Cesaris 13th, and Arnoux in the second Ferrari, well down in 14th place, and Jonathan Palmer is last but 2, ahead of Stefan Beloff in the Tyrrell and François Hainaut in the Ligier. And we are now into lap 9. Keke Rosberg sitting patiently, but no doubt fuming inside the cockpit there, while Alan Chalice on the left and the rest of the Williams mechanics try A, to locate the problem, and B, to do something about it. And that tube sticking in the middle of the front of Rosberg's helmet is to enable him to take liquid on during the race, because he, like all of them, loses a tremendous amount of body fluid during a Grand Prix. Piquet, Prost and Lauda. Look at the gap between Lauda in 3rd place and the next man up under the bridge, who should be Derek Warwick in the Renault, and indeed it is. Derek, who started 6th, and Keke Rosberg has a right turbo broken. Keke Rosberg's turbo has been broken. Well, if that's the case, then we've seen the last of Keke Rosberg in the British Grand Prix, because it takes long enough to change it to more than effectively put him out of the race, as we see Derek Warwick in 4th position. And now, Prost easing away a little, now closing up a little, Piquet, but the Brazilian very much in charge. round pattern, 140 miles an hour. Up to Druids, the slowest corner on the course. Prost closes right up under braking. Graham Hill Bend, 170 miles an hour at this point. Incredible, isn't it? Surtees, the left-hander. Change up into fourth from third. And this is where Prost is really starting to challenge. If he gets a bit closer, quite a bit closer, he will be able to draft out of Piquet and pass him.
Yes, but that's the problem he's got, because the Brabham is so quick in a straight line that you saw Prost tucked up beautifully behind the Brabham then and getting no advantage from the hole in the air that the Brabham was making, because McLaren has been winning its races on outstanding chassis performance, and they haven't really been the quickest in the straight line. Now here Prost is perfectly placed, but he just can't get the edge. Piquet pulls away on the straights, and that's being a big problem. He's perfectly placed again, and this is a chance for Prost, because if he can get inside Piquet into Paddock Bend, and he's having a look under braking, he's having a go at it. Well, he was really too far away. He had a look. He probably gave himself and Piquet a bit of a fright then, before he realised that it really wasn't on.
This is marvellous Grand Prix racing. Nelson Piquet and Alain Prost there, between them this season, have won 5 Grand Prix, plus the 2 that Niki Lauda in third position has won. So that's 7 of this year's 9 Grand Prix have been won by these 3 men.
Situation again. Prost is in the perfect position for the toe. Piquet makes the hole in the air, and still he can't pull him in. Funny enough, Prost, Piquet made a bit of an error, and Prost is trying to get inside. Now that's what Piquet mustn't do. He's going to get through. He can go into the corners slowly, but he must get out cleanly, because otherwise he'll be fast. And you're beginning to see a bit of a carbon copy of the Spanish Grand Prix about 4 years ago, when Gilles Villeneuve, for those enthusiasts who watch all the Grand Prix, they will remember when Villeneuve managed to hold up a train of about 5 cars for the whole race in a Ferrari that was totally inferior handling-wise, but was quick on the straights, and they couldn't pass him, and he blocked, and there's Prost, and he's got it. Oh, he's inside it. He's got it this time. So Alain Prost takes the lead, and I suspect, and Lauda has taken advantage of Piquet's problem as Prost passed him, and I'm afraid that isn't going to be a copy of that Spanish Grand Prix, because it rather looks as if the McLarens are going to go away. And now I think we are down to who can win from their team. They would both like to beat each other very badly. Lauda more than Prost, because Prost would probably, if he's sensible, realise that 6 points will do him a lot of good anyway, so he won't be too competent. But Lauda really needs to beat Prost, and he's going to race him all the way.
This proves that John Barnard, the McLaren designer, has produced the car. And that is Teo Fabi's Brabham-BMW. There is yet another Ram car. That's Jonathan Palmer's car down there. So both the Ram marches are out of the race. Teo Fabi is out of the race, and we're getting the demonstration that John Barnard has designed.
Hand side of your screen, now you see Jonathan Palmer's had a really huge shunt, because you can see the damage to the car, you can see the damage to the tyre wall, but luckily I was trying to point out, and a little bit of a fire around the turbo. That is actually only oil, and the marshals will be able to put that out very easily. I don't think we're going to get anything dramatic there, but somebody ought to notice it and do something about it before the tanks explode. But Palmer was all right. We saw him out of the car, and he's perfectly all right despite that very heavy accident. And here we have Alain Prost. He sold Piquet a little bit of a dummy going into Paddock Bend by staying behind him and pretending he wasn't going to overtake. He'd rehearsed it a lap before, and he's through.
Flag waving, red flag maybe. That means the race is going to be stopped. I don't know why. I'm looking around to get some knowledge and information on why, unless it means that Palmer's car, which was involved in that very heavy shunt, is blocking the course somewhere or other. But this is tremendously interesting, because it means that now, on lap 13, what will almost certainly happen is that the race will be run in 2 parts, and the results will be decided on the accumulation of time of the two cars.
Well, speaking as a cynic, and I'm only being very cynical, I was rather hoping they stopped the race because, as both McLarens had got past Piquet, we looked to have a bit of a non-race. And Palmer's car wasn't actually blocking the track. Palmer we saw, or appeared to be, I thought I saw, was quite all right. So I can't deduce a reason other than the fact that suddenly we got a non-race. It's something that we don't do in Grand Prix racing, stop races for that reason. But in America, funnily enough, where they have oval racing, they have yellow lights. When the races get a bit boring, the clerk of the course says, put on the yellow light, everyone has to slow down, they bunch up, and they've got a new race going. And anyway, whatever happens, I'm quite glad that we start again.
Mit Sicherheit wird es über diesen Abend.
As well for Nelson Piquet, I think that the race stopped because Nelson came into the pits at that point, and that would have completely destroyed the battle for the lead, which had continued between Prost, Lauda and Piquet. And this is probably a bit of a blessed relief for Nelson Piquet, and obviously we'll let you know why the race has been stopped as soon as we know ourselves. Meantime, it was Prost leading Lauda with Piquet third, Warwick fourth, De Angelis fifth, Senna sixth, Alboreto seventh, Toleman-Hart eighth, then Mansell and Boutsen ninth and 10th, and De Cesaris and Arnoux 11th and 12th when the race was stopped. And there you can see the ram of Jonathan Palmer, an absolutely disastrous race for poor John McDonnell's team. One of the smallest but an extremely efficiently run Grand Prix team, because both cars, that of Philippe Alliot and Jonathan Palmer, and there's Palmer's car, have been completely destroyed. I saw Palmer walking away from that, and he looked to me to be perfectly okay. Well, I'm sorry to see it happening this way, but given that the excitement of a Grand Prix, or the greatest excitement, the moment of highest intensity, is the start, the spectators and everybody watching this race on television are going to have a bonus in a second start. Although, as I say, I would be far happier if it was happening under different circumstances.
É a 11ª corrida deste Mundial.
Realmente esta corrida parada, no momento em que vemos Niki Lauda que pergunta, que fala com os seus técnicos, com os seus engenheiros da equipa da McLaren. Realmente a corrida foi parada, faltando 61 voltas para terminar, devido à colocação extremamente perigosa do lado esquerdo, portanto, vamos dizer, no apex da corrida, na saída da curva, em clearways, que é uma curva que se faz em quarta a cerca de 230, 240 km por hora, e que era extremamente perigosa a colocação do carro do Dr. Jonathan Palmer.
Os outros carros não ofereciam grande perigo, embora eu pense que seria boa oportunidade para se retirar o carro
eles vão aproveitar logicamente para
de
limpar a pista de todos estes destroços.
o carro de Jo Gartner está colocado num sítio mau, e se por acaso houvesse ali alguma saída aqui em Graham Hill de outro concorrente, pois ele iria parar acima daquilo que resta do Ozella, do piloto Jo Gartner.
Vemos o carro de Jacques Lafitte, em que estava também Peter Collins logo na frente do carro. É o segundo team manager, por assim dizer, da equipa da Williams. Primeiro é o Frank Williams, o boss, e Peter Collins é o segundo. E curiosamente, há 2 semanas atrás, em Dallas, exatamente, o Peter Collins e o Charles Kristen Stewart, que é um dos homens da McLaren e que está neste momento, por assim dizer, encarregado das relações públicas da TAG, Peter Collins e Charles Kristen Stewart, depois de 20 anos de presença nas pistas e de estarem em contacto praticamente de duas, conclusão de que eram primos direitos, o que é extraordinariamente interessante depois de 20 anos de contacto.
Momento em que é retirado também da pista o carro de Manfred Winkelhock. E despedimos-nos dos espectadores do primeiro canal. Quem quiser continuar a seguir este grande prémio de Inglaterra aqui em Brands Hatch é ligar para o segundo canal da RTP e terão a corrida. Uma corrida que vai reiniciar-se dentro de algum tempo.
Ora bem, a classificação será, portanto, efetuada segundo o final da 11ª volta, em princípio, e iremos partir para uma corrida nova, faltando 63 voltas para o seu término.
E depois será por adição de tempos, não é verdade?
Mas agora a luta vai ser diferente, porque há trocas de pneus, não há, logicamente, reabastecimentos. O Ken Tyrrell deverá ficar bastante aborrecido de não poder reabastecer.
Nem água.
Ele que está tão habituado a esses reabastecimentos. Os marshals, os comissários de pista do circuito de Brands Hatch, que nos 2 últimos anos foram galardoados como o circuito mais bem organizado, como os mais eficientes.
And there, of course, is the answer to why the British Grand Prix has been stopped. The recovery of Jo Gartner's car, which is the one that you're looking at now, the Osella, which went out with Philippe Alliot's car, and Jonathan Palmer's car. There are the positions after 11 laps, and those will be the first grid positions when the restart happens.
Portanto, nesta largada, Piquet vai partir na frente.
É assim que manda o regulamento. O regulamento manda que terá que ser, a classificação será aquela da volta anterior, como em Monte Carlo, isso aconteceu. Portanto, largará de novo na frente Piquet, Prost, Lauda, Warwick, De Angelis e Ayrton Senna.
Portanto, Nelson Piquet, sem ter nenhuma culpa disso, vai sair beneficiado desta segunda largada. Ele que já tinha perdido o comando e que era até terceiro, volta à primeira posição. Mas...
Será que eles vão dizer agora que terá sido o Bernie Ecclestone que terá mandado parar a corrida? Agora começam as bocas, os boatos habituais. Aliás, nós informamos que foi retirada a superlicença do diretor de corrida, Jackie Hicks, devido ao seu comportamento em Monte Carlo, e confirmamos que a Ayrton Senna da Silva não teve qualquer influência nessa decisão, conquanto ele certamente não tenha ficado desgostado em relação à punição de que foi alvo Jackie Hicks.
Ali tínhamos o Stefan Johansson, piloto sueco, que tomou o lugar de Martin Brundle, que também teve fraturas na sequência do seu acidente nos treinos de Dallas.
Mais graves foram realmente as fraturas de Johnny Cecotto na sexta-feira, quando havia cerca de 10 minutos de treino, primeiros treinos não oficiais, não cronometrados. Tudo indica que tenha sido um erro de pilotagem do jovem venezuelano, que bateu numa curva de quarta para a direita, a segunda mais rápida do circuito de Brands Hatch. Ele bateu num ângulo de 90 graus de frente para o guarda-reio e teve múltiplas fraturas nas duas pernas, o tornozelo esquerdo bastante mal, mas bastante pior ainda o tornozelo direito, que durante várias horas os médicos se esforçaram para restabelecer a circulação de sangue no seu pé direito, o que conseguiram no final de 4 horas e meia de operação. E há ainda também que acrescentar a fratura da rótula do joelho direito. Johnny Cecotto voltou a ser operado hoje de manhã já pelo especialista Dr. Cook, que é o especialista que tratou de Barry Sheene há 2 anos atrás, depois daquele acidente extraordinário de Barry Sheene no Grande Prémio de Inglaterra em Silverstone.
Na imagem tem o comentador Barry Gill.
Barry Gill, que está exatamente neste momento informando que a colocação do doutor de Jonathan Palmer estava na pior das colocações de toda a pista de Brands Hatch, que é em Clearway.
E portanto havia mesmo que retirar o carro, porque qualquer distração ali poderia ser extremamente perigosa para o resto dos concorrentes. É uma decisão que nos parece perfeitamente lógica, acertada, tomada a tempo e horas, e eu recordo-me daquele triste espetáculo de há 15 dias atrás em Dallas, onde havia automóveis semeados por tudo quanto era alcatrão.
And more news from Barry Gill in the pits.
Well, I'm with John Sars, a team manager of Renault. John, do you think the race should have been stopped?
You know, I didn't see exactly where Palmer's car was, but I've been told it was in a very dangerous position on the outside of the corner. You know, it's a lot of trouble to have a race in 2 heats, but, you know, if it was a safety problem, I cannot judge because I didn't see exactly the car. I only saw it on TV.
Well, your man Derek Warwick, of course, who's the home hero here, was doing extremely well in what I can now call the first half of the race. What are you going to have to do now to incentivise Derek to carry on in that position? What does it mean to a driver to suddenly have to stop like this?
You know, it's not so good because, you know, he is during his efforts and we have to do the start again, and the start is a very dangerous thing to do in a race. It's the most dangerous thing. So it's not so good. We don't like it, but, you know, Derek is a courageous guy, and I think there's going to be no problem for him.
When they restarted the Detroit Grand Prix, a lot of cars had gearbox troubles, including your own, and people said it's because these cars can't really cope with 2 full Grand Prix starts.
No, you know, it's the clutch which is usually damaged for 2 Grand Prix starts. The gearbox, it came that the track surface was not very good, and, you know, with this 90 degrees corners, it's very hard for the transmissions and the gearbox.
Anyway, we wish you luck in the second half of the race, and do you think Derek can do it?
Yes, I think he can do it, you know. We're waiting for his first win, you know. He nearly did it about 3 times.
A confident John Sarge, and let's hope a confident Derek Warwick. Back to you, Murray.
I think he can do it. I know he can do it. But the question is, can he do it today against Prost and Lauda? Not to mention Piquet.
Falaram que sim, embora seja bastante.
Eu também diria que sim, não é?
Eu também. E cá está o carro.
Será que estamos na largada?
É a repetição da primeira largada. Era bom que fosse a segunda, mas não. Ainda é a primeira.
Excepcionalmente, Nelson Piquet deu hoje uma grande largada, o que não é normal no brasileiro e não é normal tão pouco no lugar em que eles estão. Vamos ver se conseguimos ver nesta altura a razão dos toques que houve na descida para a curva de Surtees.
Aqui vem o pelotão compacto. E talvez seja possível, a menos que a câmara mude, mas talvez seja possível.
Well, what caused all the trouble? Now, look, and you'll watch Cheever sliding sideways. He's lost the Alfa Romeo, but it was Eddie Cheever who lost the rear end of the Alfa Romeo, and there into the tyre barrier goes Jo Gartner, and on goes Philippe Alliot in the Ram March, Gartner in the Acela, and that was how it happened. Barry Gill, more news from the pits.
Well, Murray, while you've been describing that accident from the pictures, we've got a man who was even closer to the action than our cameraman, Eddie Cheever. Eddie, what happened in that dramatic first lap?
We were going down the hill, and Patrese tried to pass somebody going down the hill, and he spun. And I went to the right. I just managed to get around of him, and somebody hit me in the back, and then they just knocked on the back of my car. Now we're trying to get it fixed. Maybe we might be able to get out, and who knows where racing goes, you might finish the points.
Well, what you're saying is that the Jonathan Palmer accident could be very good luck for you.
By the way, is he all right?
Yes, he's fine, else we wouldn't have made a remark like that, Eddie. No, he's fine, but the race has been stopped, and you're saying that your lads are now working on it.
My race is over. From the minute that Patrese spun, my race is over. But there's a good possibility that I'll be in the race, and I will do a few miles, and we might, you know, you got to be in there to get something. If you're not in there, forget it.
Eddie, I'm glad you're all right. Good news about Jonathan, and we look forward to seeing you in the second half of the race. Back to you, Murray.
Talvez possa haver o reinício da prova bastante mais cedo do que o limite. A diferença, portanto, que contará para a adição de tempos.
That was the position on the first lap. Now let's have a look at how it affected Philippe Alliot in the Ram, because he was coming down to Graham Hill Bend, the left-hander, down the reverse side of Halewood Hill, as Eddie Cheever had gone sideways, and as there is Cheever's car, you see the green one, as Jo Gartner hits the tyre barrier. It's Alliot's car, Jo Gartner there, and now you see Alliot's car heading onwards as Cheever motors across the grass with the whole of his rear wing destroyed, the rest of the field getting through, including Eno, and there is Stefan Johansson in the Tyrrell with a flying wheel in front of him with his rear wing destroyed. And that accounts for the disappearance, too, of the enormously talented Swedish driver Stefan Johansson in the Tyrrell.
Ora bem, em relação a Eddie Cheever, ele é, vamos dizer, abalroado por trás por Philippe Alliot na altura em que ele, para evitar o seu companheiro de equipa, Riccardo Patrese, que tinha feito meio set na entrada da curva Surtees.
That is the unfortunate Ram team of John McDonald pulling the remains of one of their cars. It's Philippe Alliot's car, actually. You can see the fire extinguisher powder on it. You can see, actually, that the front of the carbon fibre monocoque seems to be completely undamaged. There are the fluid containers for the clutch and brake pedals. But the actual chassis of the car looks as though it's perfectly okay, and that, as ever, as Ginzani's car protected him in a quite appalling crash in South Africa, so that very strong carbon fibre monocoque protected Philippe Alliot, as the similar one did with Jonathan Palmer. There is Jonathan Palmer. Barry?
Yes, Murray, I can hear you. Jonathan looking at the very sad remains of his car. Jonathan, what happened?
I'm not absolutely sure. I was turning into clearways. The car had been going pretty well until then. And I turned into the first third of the corner, and it was going normally, and then suddenly there was a bit of a clonk and the steering went light, and the car then took over a mind of its own and just went straight on. I think there's some sort of problem in the front suspension of the car.
I mean, there is quite a lot of damage about. I mean, what exactly happened after that?
Well, nothing very much, just that it went out of control straight into the barriers, into the tyre barriers, and of course it hit very hard because there were no brakes either. I suppose you're doing 120 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour there. There isn't much runoff area before you hit the tyres.
I must say, Jonathan, you're very composed and looking absolutely perfectly fit. Can I ask you on behalf of all the viewers, are you okay?
Yes, I'm absolutely fine, and thanks very much for your concern.
Antes de entrar na curva, e portanto o carro saiu todo à direita, é o que acontece. E Jonathan Palmer estava com esperança de que esta poderia ser a sua melhor corrida do ano.
Tudo parado aqui na zona dos boxes, alguns carros já no grid de largada, outros ainda no box.
Ainda lá não está o carro de Nelson Piquet, que está na sua box.
No box parado também está Derek Warwick a falar com Dario Calzavara da Ferrari. Os dois Ferraris estão no box, René Arnoux ainda dentro do carro, vai sair agora. As câmaras concentrando no carro de Philippe Alliot.
E lá fora
vimos do lado direito o irmão de Philippe Alliot, que faz de manager do jovem francês. Fora do carro está também Michele Alboreto. As duas Ferraris estão no box, como está também no box o carro de Nelson Piquet e o de Jacques Laffite. Lá atrás há uma outra Alfa Romeo que me parece ser a de Riccardo Patrese. Parado também no box o carro de Stefan Johansson, os dois Arrows também no box, e no grid de largada estão as duas McLarens, o Renault de Warwick, a Lotus de De Angelis, o Toleman de Ayrton Senna, o outro Renault de Patrick Tambay e ainda a outra Lotus de Nigel Mansell.
René Arnoux deixou o cockpit do seu Ferrari. Michele Alboreto também não está dentro do carro e lá fora apertou um pouco o calor. Está um pouco bastante mais quente, naturalmente, por isso os pilotos saíram dos respectivos cockpits. Vai haver mudança total de pneus, Domingos?
Sim, acho que sim, mas no entanto com 63 voltas para terminar esta corrida, acho que não há grandes diferenças na escolha de compostos. Aqueles que decidiram fazer um pit stop para troca, que continuarão, com a escolha que fizeram. Ou poderão dar uma outra informação depois de terem feito já 11 voltas.
Exatamente, era isso que eu ia dizer. É que, entretanto, estas 11 voltas, 12 voltas cumpridas, já servem para se avaliar do comportamento dos compostos escolhidos, que, em alguns casos, e parece-me ser o caso flagrante de Nigel Mansell, se estavam a revelar perfeitamente inadequados. Nigel Mansell, quando há pouco vimos a repetição da largada, tinha partido junto de Patrick Tambay, foi perdendo posições e agora estava já numa posição bastante atrasada. E sem dar sinais de grande recuperação.
Nigel Mansell, que os nossos telespectadores estão bem lembrados, há 15 dias atrás em Dallas, foi vítima de um esgotamento,
desmaio,
porque o que é lógico, depois de uma corrida extremamente dura como foi a de Dallas, em que ele esteve à frente dessa corrida durante muito tempo, uma corrida desgastante do ponto de vista não só físico, como também pelo calor que estava e pelo esforço que os pilotos tiveram que fazer para guiar no meio de muros, portanto em que a menor falha significava eliminação da corrida. Nigel Mansell está neste momento aqui na Inglaterra debaixo de uma pressão extraordinária, porque dentro da Lotus parece que neste momento não goza, vamos dizer assim, de extremas simpatias nem de apadrinhamentos naquilo que respeita a uma sua possível recontratação para 1985. Parece que um dos pilotos poderá sair será Nigel Mansell.
Inclusivamente chegou a correr a notícia após a multa que lhe foi imposta e a suspensão com pena suspensa pela FISA, chegou a correr o boato, neste caso um boato, que Nigel Mansell teria mesmo sido despedido pela Lotus. Não, ele continua, mas temos algumas dúvidas se continuará em 85.
Eu tenho muitas dúvidas mesmo, mas eu acho que seria praticamente impossível para um inglês, num time inglês, correr num grande prémio de Inglaterra, ser banido, porque a lei inglesa de trabalho não permitiria nunca que Nigel Mansell fosse despedido sem justa causa. Não havia uma justa causa para o despedir. Qualquer acidente ou qualquer mau comportamento, vamos dizer assim, de um piloto em pista faz praticamente parte deste jogo, é uma regra deste jogo. Eu não veria qualquer possibilidade de a Lotus poder impor para eliminar a presença de Nigel Mansell aqui em Brands Hatch, tal como a própria Federação Internacional de Automobilismo não conseguiu eliminar
a equipa Tyrrell.
Exatamente, porque a lei de trabalho inglesa não permite que haja uma suspensão de trabalho, quer dizer, qualquer pessoa tem direito ao trabalho e, portanto, eles não poderiam nunca ser eliminados de um grande prémio de Inglaterra. O mesmo não vai acontecer agora no grande prémio da Alemanha.
Daqui para a frente estou mesmo convencido que não correm mais, até porque o apelo de Ken Tyrrell vai ser julgado pelo Supremo Tribunal de Apelação da própria FIA e, portanto, eles estão mais ou menos voltados para aplicar e confirmar a pena de suspensão até ao fim do ano que foi aplicada à equipa Tyrrell. Aliás, nesse sentido, houve ontem duas conferências de imprensa. Uma do presidente Jean-Marie Balestre e outra de Ken Tyrrell. Jean-Marie Balestre revelou a todos os órgãos de informação que foram feitas análises ao líquido contido no segundo depósito da Tyrrell, um líquido que deveria ser só água e, portanto, deveria ser 100% água. E nessas quantidades foram detectados 27% de hidrocarbonetos e 73% de água.
Nós vemos na televisão, agora nos ecrãs, Eugênio Ziliotto de Costas a falar com Alain Prost. Eugênio Ziliotto, mais conhecido por Mohamed Ali de Monte Real. Foi ele que teve aquele desaguisado com Michele Alboreto durante os treinos de sexta-feira.
Um desaguisado que esperemos já esteja mais ou menos sanado, até porque Michele Alboreto é uma pessoa extraordinariamente correta.
Well, Murray, even more excitement down here. You're seeing a very, very unhappy Alain Prost behind me. He's just had an altercation, I think it's a polite word, with Jean-Marie Balestre, FISA. He said they don't understand their own rules because we understand, but they're going to go back to the lap where Nelson Piquet was leading. In other words, that Piquet will be starting in pole position for the restart. That certainly is a feeling here, and Mr. Prost is not a happy man, and Mr. Balestre has been left knowing in no uncertain terms what he thinks of him. We'll now try and find out more. Back to you, Murray.
choosing my words carefully, I will tell you that Jean-Marie Balestre, the Frenchman who is the head of FISA, the Fédération Internationale Sportive Automobile, that's the governing body of motorsport, is not at all a popular man here at Brands Hatch, not only with his countryman Alain Prost for the reasons that you have just heard from Barry Gill, but because of the swingeing fine that FISA applied to Nigel Mansell for his alleged unruly tactics at the start at Detroit, and for the fact that FISA has decided to ban the Tyrrell team from racing for the rest of this season, except for this event, in which they're being allowed to take part as a result of a High Court injunction. And that is Ron Dennis in the background talking to Alain Prost on the left and Niki Lauda on the right.
Yes, talking about Balestre and the FISA operation that he heads, their, shall we say, integrity has come into question over many years, but never more so than now over this Tyrrell incident that you just mentioned, Murray, because basically what they've done is just the most awful thing. They have banned the Tyrrell team, allegedly for cheating, which they quite patently were not. There is some suspicion that the Tyrrell team may have infringed the regulations accidentally, and in a very minor way that didn't affect the performance of their car. They have been convicted, if you like, of cheating, and already Ken Tyrrell this morning has received a telex from one of his sponsors who does not want to be tarred with the brush of being involved with the cheat, which Ken Tyrrell is not. And FISA have a great deal to answer for on this. It's a political vendetta that brought Ken Tyrrell into the courtroom, and it has potentially destroyed his business, his livelihood, the livelihood of 40 or 50 people who work for him, and it really is the most horrendous thing. They've been doing this for many years. My time was a victim of their so-called justice, but it didn't damage me in the way it's potentially damaging Ken Tyrrell. And I think it's very important that the British public and the public at large throughout the world should know that Ken Tyrrell is being victimized in what is, in my opinion, a criminally negligent fashion.
And we can only hope for a happy outcome from this most unfortunate, to put it mildly, occasion, as Barry Gill waits to talk to us.
Well, while listening to James talking about one row involving FISA, there is certainly one developing behind. You see Ron Dennis here with the rule book. The Marlboro McLaren team are claiming, I personally think rightly, that 12 laps were completed, not 11. In other words, that the McLaren car was in the lead, and that's where it should start. You may have noticed, Murray, that the lap board here is talking about 60 laps to go. The reason is they're reducing the race by 3 laps to make up for the extra warm-ups and the reconnaissance lap. So when it does start again, it will be a 60-lap race. But the argument now is who will be starting in pole position? Will it be Nelson Piquet, or will it be Alain Prost, the man who had, without doubt, passed him? We'll keep you posted.
Well, that at least resolves the question of why they were showing 60 laps and I was talking about a longer race.
O bico da frente e a carnagem para a posição da grelha de partida, mas realmente não está para se apresentar ao público.
Não, de maneira nenhuma. E entretanto está tudo parado, já deveríamos estar com a nova partida. Normalmente, depois da volta da apresentação, a partida oficial, ou a partida definitiva, demora cerca de 30 segundos. Neste momento está a demorar muito mais do que isso.
Há muita gente ainda na pista.
No pódio do diretor da corrida, Jean-Marie Balestre fala com o seu colega, por assim dizer, inglês. O diretor adjunto de corrida do lado de Derek Ongaro para lhe dar todas as instruções, todas as informações que vêm diretamente da torre de controle. Os comissários de pista, depois do trabalho efetuado, dão uma ligeira descansada. E aqui está.
E eles mantêm a indicação de 60 voltas para o final da prova.
Circuito extraordinariamente bem delineado, natural, característico. Circuito realmente de extrema condução, como já tínhamos falado. Esta é a entrada de Clearway. Foi aqui assim que saiu Philippe Alliot, depois desta curva para a direita. E aqui temos agora
Jonathan Palmer.
O Jonathan Palmer, exatamente.
E Em termos de circuitos ingleses, todos caracterizados por grandes espaços verdes, é justo que se diga que este circuito de Brands Hatch é bem mais interessante do que o circuito de Silverstone, que alterna com este na realização do Grande Prémio de Inglaterra.
Dentro de 15 dias iremos para Hockenheim, onde teremos de novo um circuito difícil de condução, depois das chicanes 3 que foram colocadas em relação à primeira execução do circuito. Será um circuito em que a potência do motor é predominante e, logicamente, também poderá acontecer que Nelson Piquet efetue dentro de 15 dias a sua 6ª pole position da temporada.
Nelson Piquet, quer dizer, já tem um nome numa das chicanes lá do circuito de Hockenheim. Aquela chicane de Nelson Piquet, onde ele teve uma explicação fora do automóvel com o piloto Eliseu Salazar, o chileno, que se previa que pudesse regressar à Fórmula 1, mas que não vai realmente regressar. Eu acho que não vai regressar o Eliseu Salazar no ramo, nem nenhum dos pilotos da ramo, porque eles não têm mesmo automóvel, não é?
Derek Warwick vai sair na 4ª posição, as esperanças inglesas concentradas sobre este piloto da Renault, que na sexta-feira renovou o seu contrato para 1985 com a casa francesa.
Tem uma diferença de 13 segundos,6 para Nelson Piquet. Portanto, as contas, por exemplo, para que Derek Warwick ganhasse este Grande Prémio de Inglaterra, seria necessário que ele chegasse mais de 13 segundos,6 à frente de Nelson Piquet. No caso de Nelson Piquet, vir logo atrás dele, porque as contas deste Grande Prémio vão fazer-se por adição de tempos entre a primeira mão e a segunda. Aqui um piquenique dos comissários.
Estão numa hora de pausa. Vai demorar ainda cerca, talvez, de uns 5 minutos, esta segunda partida. Já todos os carros no grid de largada, menos o de Theo Fabi. E há ali uma confusão com o homem da Bosch, responsável, portanto, pela parte de ignição, que está debruçado sobre o carro de Theo Fabi. Paul Rocha, o pai do motor BMW, já se foi embora. Nós vimos-lo passar há cerca de 10 minutos. Ele não tinha nas suas previsões um adiamento ou um atraso desta corrida e, portanto, como bom alemão, foi-se embora.
E agora, os mecânicos da Brabham trazem a carenagem traseira do carro de Theo Fabi, que estava colocada na posição que o piloto italiano ia ocupar na grelha de partida.
Aqui está Alain Prost, o piloto mais regular deste campeonato do mundo. E ontem,
aqui tem as posições dele.
Dizia já do Carrouche que Alain Prost seria um piloto extraordinário se tivesse mais garra, mais vontade de ganhar. É um piloto pouco atacador. O que ele tem a menos, tem o Nigel Mansell a mais.
Se pudesse fazer uma mistura de Hélio de Angelis com Andrea de César, teríamos com certeza um extraordinário piloto.
Do lado esquerdo, sentado na roda, vemos um
chefe mecânico.
Não, ele é uma das figuras mais características. Logo atrás de azul está o irmão de Hélio de Angelis. Mas do lado esquerdo, sentado sobre a roda, está um americano que é comissário de bordo de uma companhia americana e que há 5 anos é o homem responsável na Lotus pelos pneus. Ele arranja sempre forma de arranjar umas passagens e uns voos que lhe permitam estar em todo o mundo para ser empregado responsável na Lotus pelos pneus.
E faltava ali uma figura também muito típica aqui de Peter Ward, da Lotus. Faltava, dizia eu, uma figura muito típica da equipa inglesa, que é o chefe mecânico Bob Tance.
Ora bem, dizia-nos Peter Ward que, logicamente, os pilotos estão bastante nervosos porque uma largada de grande prémio é sempre um momento de emoção e de nervosismo, e duas no espaço de meia hora, logicamente, que é uma dose muito forte de nervosismo para todos os pilotos. Por outro lado, também há algumas apreensões dos chefes de equipa no que respeita à embreagem dos carros, que normalmente não deverão suportar duas largadas num curto espaço de tempo.
O Peter Ward acrescentou que, entretanto, no carro do Nagy havia alguns problemas de embreagem, que ele espera que o piloto inglês da Lotus possa levar a corrida até ao fim.
Foi mostrado o painel dos 3 minutos. 3 minutos, portanto, segundo tudo parece, para mais uma volta de apresentação. Bem, já só faltam duas daquelas contas que nós tínhamos feito. Se eles derem mais uma, aí estão as contas feitas.
Portanto, dentro de alguns instantes vamos ter realmente a segunda largada para esta segunda corrida aqui em Brands Hatch. Esperemos que tudo se passe de modo mais tranquilo que durante as primeiras 12 voltas já efetuadas.
Temos a parte mais rápida do circuito, com a longa reta que depois tem uma curva para a direita rapidíssima, mas que foi na segunda curva que nós vimos agora do lado direito do nosso ecrã que saiu Johnny Cecotto na saída da curva. Portanto, ele realmente perdeu o controle do carro mesmo na saída da curva. Depois há uma outra para a direita já menos rápida, seguida de uma para a esquerda que dá acesso a uma das curvas mais difíceis e de maior condução deste circuito, que é esta que nós vemos aqui do lado esquerdo do nosso ecrã, que se chama Clearway.
Imagens obtidas de um balão colocado aqui sobre o circuito, que é uma excelente opção para este tipo de trabalho. Os 20 carros e parece que o Theo Fabi desistiu da ideia de participar na corrida.
1 minuto para a largada.
Os motores em funcionamento, toda a gente a abandonar a zona de grelha. Realmente Theo Fabi não vai partir. Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost e ao fundo Niki Lauda, também ao fundo Elio De Angelis, a seu lado Derek Warwick.
Entretanto, a interrupção custou cerca de 1 hora 56 minutos, portanto 26 mais do que aqueles que normalmente deveria ter custado.
Kleine Einführungsrunde, auch für Sie zu Hause, falls Sie sich vielleicht jetzt erst in unsere Direktübertragung aus Brands Hatch einblenden sollten. Paddock Hill Bend, das ist die schwierigste Kurve von Brands Hatch. Eine fahrerisch sehr, sehr interessante Kurve. Die Fahrer zielen einfach auf ein Werbeschild hin und genau am Belagwechsel lenken sie in die Kurve ein. Das ist die Druids-Haarnadel, jetzt bereits 120 etwa, zweiter Gang. Und dann in der Linkskurve, hier kam es zu diesen Karambolagen nach dem ersten Start. Linkskurve, Graham Hill Kurve, kurz die Cooper Gerade, dann die Surtees Linkskurve und jetzt bereits die lange Gerade. Zur Hawthorne-Kurve. Hier ist im Training Derek Voigt, der englische Renault-Fahrer, einmal von der Strecke abgekommen. Die schnellste Kurve des Kurses, 5. Gang, 250. Kurz die Derek Minter Gerade, benannt nach einem ehemals sehr bekannten Motorradrennfahrer. Dann kommt die Westfield-Kurve. 4. oder 5. Gang, je nachdem, mit 200 Kilometer pro Stunde. Die Brabham und Arrows Rennwagen haben ja 6 Gänge, alle anderen haben 5 Gänge. Dann kommt Dingledale, die Dingledale-Kurve, in der es im Training den Unfall von Johnny Cecotto gegeben hat. Das war hier. Und Sie sehen enorme Geschwindigkeiten, aber keine Auslaufzonen, keine Sturzräume. Die Linkskurve Stirling's Bend, selbstverständlich nach Stirling Moss benannt, dem vierfachen Vize-Weltmeister der Formel 1, eigentlich dem berühmtesten Vize-Weltmeister der Formel 1-Geschichte. 16 Grand Prix-Rennen hat er gewonnen, Weltmeister ist er doch nie gewesen. Und dann die Clearways-Kurve und dann der zweite Teil dieser Zielkurve, die Jim Clark-Kurve. Die Zielkurve hängt nach außen. Das Auto rutscht eigentlich durch diese ganze Kurve hindurch weg. Und noch einmal die gebogene und sehr, sehr wellige Startzielgerade von Brands Hatch. Die meisten Autos brauchen hier sehr, sehr weiche Federung. Spitzengeschwindigkeit 276 Kilometer pro Stunde.
19 starters because Winkelhock is in the pits. Behind Prost on the right is Derek Warwick. Pace car brings up the rear. Hoog, Rotengatter, the Dutch driver in the Spirit, is there for the second time. Go! And this time, Alain Prost does it right from the beginning. Prost leads, Piquet second, Lauda third, the two Renaults fourth and fifth, followed by the two JPS Lotuses. Which of the two Renaults is it? It's Derek Warwick leading his teammate Patrick Tambay, and bringing up the rear with a successful negotiation of Graham Hill Bend the first time in this restart was François Hainaut in the Ligier. And it's Prost, Piquet, Lauda.
Well, start for Niki Lauda, because the one thing he didn't want was Piquet to get out, to get between the two McLarens, because he will suspect that Piquet is not going to be as quick as Alain Prost. He has great difficulty, he knows, passing Nelson Piquet, as we discussed earlier. The Brabham is very fast in a straight line, which makes it exceptionally difficult to pass for anybody, let alone when Piquet is difficult. And it may be that Alain Prost can build a big lead once he settles before Lauda can get past Piquet. So Lauda would actually have preferred Piquet to get away off the line ahead of Prost, I would think. But Lauda now will be under pressure to look for a way around Nelson Piquet.
Yes, Prost is pulling away, Lauda is closing up. You see there's a much bigger gap between Prost and Piquet now, and a much closer gap between Piquet and Lauda than there was half a lap ago. Derek Warwick is still in fourth position. Tambay is still fifth. De Angelis is sixth. Alboreto is seventh and about to be taken by Senna, who does it before your very eyes and moves up into sixth place in the race. Ayrton Senna in the Toleman with its turbocharged Hart engine is in sixth place. The first three go through. There's Warwick fourth, Tambay fifth. Where there is De Angelis, there is Senna, Alboreto, De Cesaris, the Alfa Romeo of Riccardo Patrese, and the leader goes through. Lauda, Warwick, Tambay, De Angelis, Senna, Alboreto, De Cesaris, Boutsen, Mansell and Arnoux absolutely together, and bringing up the rear, Hoob Rotengatter. We complete the second of 60 laps. There's the gap. It's about what it was on the previous lap. It's still the dominant Alain Prost leading.
Yes, and I think Ron Dennis's remarks were reflected correctly. First of all, Piquet was lucky to be in the race and on pole at all, because he'd already come into the pits, and it was pure coincidence from his point of view that the race got stopped. And secondly, had the opportunity with hindsight to be able to change to a harder tyre. His car already looks to be going better than it did in the original race. And of course, if he can go this well early on hard tyres, they wear less, and as the race goes on, that should become an advantage to him, respective to McLaren, who are running a softer compound. They're both on Michelin tyres. So look for Piquet. If he can hold on in the first third of the race, he's going to be looking very much stronger in the second half.
And look for Derek Warwick and Patrick Tambay too, because in 4th and 5th positions behind number 8, Niki Lauda in the red and white Marlboro McLaren, there is Derek Warwick 4th over the line. Behind him, Patrick Tambay in 5th position. Then there's quite a long gap. 6th is Prost, and Piquet is 0.93 seconds. And the gap between Lauda, who is in 3rd position, and Warwick, who is 4th, is 1.5 seconds.
I get a sneaking feeling that hard tyres are the way to go, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Renaults hadn't moved up to the harder rear tyre, because they're going much better than they did in the first half of the race. You may think because Piquet's not leading, he's not doing as well as he was in the first half of the race, but believe me, when Prost got past him, he was never going to keep up, and now he's keeping up, and the Renaults are keeping up. So I have a strong feeling tyres are at least as much an art as a science. For example, the Brands Hatch track, as the cars go round, gets more and more rubber on it, and normally one expects it to suit a soft compounded tyre better.
But Jacques Lafitte joining his teammate Keke Rosberg out of the British Grand Prix. Both Williams Honda cars out of the race. A continuation of a rather unhappy, except for Dallas, race. Now, the gap between Prost and Piquet now is 1.1 seconds, and the gap, I think, between Lauda, who is 3rd, and Warwick, who is in 4th position, is extending. It's 2.6 seconds. You can see for yourselves that it is. And 5th there, rounding Druids now, where he went off in the Ferrari last year, is Patrick Tambay. And coming up behind Tambay, it is De Angelis, and then Senna. There is Tambay. First, second and third at Hawthorns. 55 miles an hour, down to Westfield, 104.
Interesting shot there. As they came out of Hawthorns, you saw both McLarens with plenty of road to spare, taking it relatively easy, and Piquet on the limit. And I think this is a clear demonstration of the superiority of the McLaren chassis. At the same time, they don't have the straight line penetration, i.e. the aerodynamics at the fast, nor the engine power. But I don't think either of the McLaren drivers would complain, because their tag engine, engineered by Porsche, has been extremely reliable, extremely fuel efficient, which is important in this formula, but they don't appear to have the power that the BMW has. And there's Prost just going around Druids again, and he's opening a little bit of a gap, and it's now very important for Lauda that he should be able to find a way around Nelson Piquet, and so far he really hasn't looked at all threatening as far as passing Piquet is concerned. I'm quite sure if he was in front he'd be able to pull away, but with the disturbance of the air, which means that the car following's wings don't work, they don't get so much area with the windshield, which means they don't give as much downforce, and Lauda is going to have to do a lot of thinking. He will be thinking very hard in his car at the moment about how to deal with this Piquet problem, because most drivers, when they're in front of you, can rely on them in due course if you pressure him enough to make a mistake. But Nelson Piquet is a bit too good for that. He knows what the situation is. He knows that the only way that Lauda can get past, easily anyway, is if he makes a mistake, and that, I'm quite sure, is one thing he's going to be very careful not to do. He'd rather go slowly and not make a mistake than go fast and take any risks of an error. When I talk about a mistake, I'm talking about a little bit of a slide and having to slow down, which is all you need for the following car to nip past.
Huub Rodengatter has gone into the pits in the Spirit Hart car. Prost is just easing away. It's about 1.5 seconds now over Nelson Piquet. Alain Prost on his way at the moment, with some distance still to go to his 4th Grand Prix win of 1984 in the McLaren. And he's much happier in the McLaren team than he was in the Renault team last year, he has said. the McLaren team being a very tightly knit, small, centrally controlled, or a great deal of friendship and fellowship, and that's something that Prost is really benefiting from. Very quick feedback of any ideas that he may have. And Derek Warwick in the Renault still very much in touch, because as they come over the line with Prost leading, Piquet second there, Lauda in third position, Derek Warwick comes out of clearways as Lauda crosses the line, and the gap between Lauda in third place, Warwick in fourth place, and there is Derek Warwick from 4 marks in Hampshire, is 2.83 seconds.
Der vierte englischer Fahrer im Rennen. Liegt an 4. Stelle Nigel Mansell mit dem Lotus, 8 Plätze hinter ihm. Im Augenblick nur in 12. Position. Derek Warwick, vielleicht erinnern Sie sich vor 2 Jahren, als Niki Lauda hier gewonnen hat, hat Derek Warwick enormen Beifall bekommen, als er den Ferrari von Didier Pironi überholt hat und sehr lange hinter Niki Lauda an 2. Stelle gelegen ist. Mit dem Toleman immer sehr gute Leistung hier in Brands Hatch, und einmal hat Warwick sogar hier das 6-Stunden-Rennen gewonnen. Zurück zur Technik der McLaren Tag Turbos. Begonnen hat man mit einem brauchbaren Drehzahlbereich ab 7500 Umdrehungen pro Minute. Jetzt können Lauda und Prost bereits bei 6500 Touren absolut volle Leistung bringen. Zwischen 6,5 und 11,5, und dann ab 11,5 schaltet sich der Drehzahlbegrenzer ein. Schnellste Runde Alain Prost, 1,14,8. Schnitt 202 Kilometer pro Stunde. Schnellste Runde im Rennen im Augenblick für Alain Prost. Prost hatte heuer erst einmal die schnellste Runde eines Grand Prix, das war in Rio. Anschließend waren die rundenschnellsten Tambay, Arnoux, Piquet, Senna, nochmals Piquet, Warwick und zuletzt in Dallas Niki Lauda. Prost, Piquet, Lauda. Mit einiger Sicherheit ist der Weltmeister 1984 unter diesen 3 Piloten zu suchen. Piquet 1,7 hinter Prost, Niki Lauda 3,6 hinter Prost. Aber 16 Sekunden vor Derek Warwick, 26 vor De Angelis. Die Lotus waren hier bei den Testfahrten die absolut schnellsten. Niemand versteht, warum es hier im offiziellen Training nicht mehr so gut gelaufen ist. Üblicherweise liegen die Lotus mit vollen Tanks, also in der Anfangsphase eines Grand Prix, am besten auf der Straße und sind dann auch am schnellsten. In Dallas war es ja so, dass Nigel Mansell nach dem Boxenstopp nie mehr richtig ins Bild gekommen ist. Mit weniger Benzin an Bord wurde der Wagen natürlich leichter. Die Bodenfreiheit wurde höher und dadurch wurde beim Lotus 93T dann die Bodenhaftung geringer, der Bodendruck war weg. Keine Bodenhaftung mehr, immer schlechtere Straßenlage. Dazu kommt immer wieder permanenter Ärger mit dem Getriebe. Auf engen Kursen verwenden die Lotusfahrer 2 zweite Gänge. Falls einer bricht, kann man immer noch den zweiten verwenden. Das ist aber heute in Brands Hatch sicherlich nicht notwendig. Eine einzige Passage, die im zweiten Gang genommen wird, das ist die Haarnadel von Lewis. Im Bild Niki Lauda, 3. Platz, sicherer 3. hinter Prost und Piquet, 17 Sekunden vor Derek Warwick. Niki Lauda fährt zum 6. Mal einen Grand Prix in Brands Hatch. 2 davon hat er ja gewonnen.
exactly holding station. They're all wanting to change it. But, this is the battle for 8th position, with Andrea de Cesaris there in the Ligier with its Renault engine being hotly pursued by the Belgian Grand Prix Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari, and his teammate René Arnoux, who is in 4th place in the championship, having had a tremendous run of success in the last few Grand Prix. Arnoux I'm talking about. This is the battle for 8th position. De Cesaris and the 2 Ferraris. Alboreto 9th and Arnoux 10th.
Yes, De Cesaris can be a pretty wide driver when he wants to be. He's making that car about 3 times as wide as it actually measures. And the 2 Ferraris, and Arnoux having a go at his own teammate. He is trying to get round the outside, and Alboreto doesn't want to know. He says to him, let me have a go at De Cesaris first, but in the meantime they've dropped back a tiny bit because they've been fighting amongst themselves. But De Cesaris is definitely holding them up, and it's only a matter of time before they find a way past.
The Ligier has flattered to deceive this year. It was going a lot better in the earlier stages, and it dropped back, and it looks to me as though they've actually got it running well today, because Andrea de Cesaris has succeeded in staying ahead of the Ferraris, but you will notice that up into 9th place, having got past his teammate Alboreto there, has gone René Arnoux, the 36-year-old Frenchman who actually lives in London now, and there's Michele Alboreto. These British designed Ferraris, because Dr. Harvey Postlethwaite, the British engineer, is the man who designed and was responsible for the construction of their very advanced monocoque chassis, which, like most of them, in fact all the rest of them with 1 or 2 exceptions, is made out of carbon fibre. And Arnoux is now right up with Andrea de Cesaris, and Arnoux, as he has done in several Grand Prix in the recent past, has started badly because he was only in 13th place on the grid for the original start, and is charging through the field as he has done. He had an absolutely magnificent race at Dallas when he started, you may recall, last on the grid because he had trouble on the warm-up lap and couldn't move up through the grid to his rightful position. But it didn't stop him from charging through the field and finishing second, as he did at San Marino. And with a 3rd and 2 fourths and a 5th, he's in 4th place in the championship. And Mansell is in trouble. Nigel Mansell touring. Oh dear, poor Nigel has had a most unhappy meeting and is now out of the Grand Prix because he has driven off the course. Nigel Mansell retires. He has had the car problems this year, where his teammate Elio De Angelis has been blessed with consistency and reliability. Nigel Mansell has only finished in 3 Grand Prix, 2 Grand Prix this year, and has had a mass of failures to finish. And this is yet another of them, as Alain Prost goes through, still leading on the 15th lap of the second part of the race, and as you can see for yourselves, increasing the gap between himself and Nelson Piquet, and really now making himself look like the world champion designate of 1984 to take over from his friend Nelson Piquet, who is in 2nd place in the race. There he is. It would seem that Lauda cannot catch Piquet. That's one of the arrows. It's Boutsen, Thierry Boutsen. And this is beginning the British Grand Prix to look like a Monaco race, because there have been a lot of retirements. Thierry Boutsen, the very quiet and thoughtful Belgian, is out of the British Grand Prix. Meantime, the race for 8th place continues to rage between Andrea De Cesaris and the 2 Ferraris. There is De Cesaris coming out of Clearways into Brabham Straight with Arnoux and Alboreto 9th and 10th behind him. And the race positions then are still Alain Prost leading. In 2nd position, Piquet. 3rd is Lauda. 4th is Warwick. 5th is Tombay. 6th is De Angelis. 7th is Ayrton Senna. And the battle for 8th place is the one that you're looking at now. 8th, De Cesaris. 9th, Arnoux. 10th, Alboreto. And if you can keep clear minds, as I am attempting to do, this appears to me to be the total aggregate position after 25 laps. Prost leading, Piquet 2nd, Lauda 3rd, Warwick 4th, De Angelis 5th, Toleman 6th, Senna 7th, Alboreto 8th, De Cesaris 9th, and Arnoux 10th.
Apropos of nothing, just contemplating the overall situation, Murray. This change to harder compound tyres, rear tyres by Piquet, will alter the whole pattern of the race, because whilst the Goodyear runners, that's Ferrari that we're looking at now, for example, have got a pretty hard compound on and are planning to go the whole race, because their softer ones didn't give them enough advantage to give them the time difference. The McLarens are planning to stop. Now, if Piquet with a harder tyre, which wears less, can go the distance, he could get a big advantage.
Nigel Mansell out of the race. Why Barry Gill?
Nigel, what happened? Basically going down the pit straight here, I was in 5th, and all of a sudden 5th gear exploded, so no drive. Ah, Nigel, you must have been heartbroken at that time. I just find it very hard to believe. You're going down the straight, and all of a sudden the engine hits a rev limiter, and you think, what's happened? You make sure you're in gear, and you find that the gearbox is exploded in 5th. Nigel, all we can say is bad luck. Better luck next year. Thank you. Back to you, Murray.
Nigel Mansell's luck has got to change. He has led 2 Grand Prix. He was optimistic that he would do well in this one, at least finish in the points. It was not to be. This is De Cesaris, Arnoux, Alboreto, still 8th. And it's Prost leading, who is 2nd. There goes the race leader, and here is the new second-place man. It's Niki Lauda, who has got past Nelson Piquet at Druids under braking, whilst Barry Gill was telling us with Nigel Mansell what had happened to the Englishman. We now have the familiar situation of the 2 magnificent McLarens in 1st and 2nd places.
Yes, we now have a couple of hypothetical questions posed. First of all, what can Lauda do about his teammate Alain Prost? Because Lauda would like to do a lot about it, i.e. get in front of him and beat him fair and square, which would make him very happy. Prost, on the other hand, isn't too worried, because 6 points would do him very nicely, would slightly diminish his lead, but what he doesn't want to do is risk losing all points by making any mistakes, so he's going to be taking no risks. And the other question is one to which I just referred, concerning Piquet running a harder compound of tyre and possibly being able to go the whole distance without a stop.
In which case, in the closing stages of the event, as Lauda passes Francois Hainaut, I think, in the Ligier. No, it was Ghinzani in the Osella. There comes Lauda. Niki Lauda, the race veteran, this is his 151st Grand Prix. His enthusiasm and ability remain undiminished. And if he finishes even in 5th position in this race, he will become the highest World Championship points scorer of all time, displacing Jackie Stewart from that honour. Stewart has 360 World Championship points, albeit from 99 Grand Prix. Niki Lauda, at the present moment, has 358.5 because of the shortened Monaco race, and is in line to beat Stewart.
Bestätigung aus den Boxen, Mansell ausgeschieden wegen Getriebeschaden. Das war Ayrton Senna mit dem gelben Sturzen und dem rot-weißen Auto. Hier haben Sie Tombe
Patrick Tombe is in 5th position. Elio De Angelis in the black and gold John Player Special is really charging. And De Angelis has been accused in the past of sometimes getting disinterested in the race, but certainly not this season.
Gibt sie aufgrund der Addition der beiden Läufe. Hier haben Sie bereits die Gesamtwertung nach 30 Runden. Prost 6,9 Sekunden vor Lauda, 8,1 vor Piquet, dann Warwick 30 Sekunden zurück, dann De Angelis und dann Senna, gefolgt von Tambay, Alboreto, De Cesaris, Arnoux, Patrese, Ghisani, Zura, Eno und Bello. 15 noch im Rennen, 10 in der gleichen Runde. Als nächster überrundet wird René Arnoux. De Angelis, hinter ihm Ayrton Senna, der Teamkollege von Johnny Cecotto. Senna ist sehr blass gewesen, stand sichtlich unter Schock, als er nach dem Unfall seines Teamkollegen im ersten Training 3 Minuten nach Trainingsbeginn in seiner ersten fliegenden Runde an die Box zurückgekommen ist.
This is the battle for 8 which continues. And Arnoux is now shaping up to go through and he's going to do it as out of the pits. Now that's completely blocked Arnoux.
Yes, that was a cruel piece of luck after a lot of battle, because Arnoux has been looking, but it's very difficult to get past. He finally worked his way, because at Brands Hatch, when you want to overtake somebody, it's anything up to a 2-lap plan in which you have to drop back, get everything right, and make a run at the car in front. He had done this run successfully, and he was balked by a car coming out of the pits. It wasn't the car coming out of the pits' fault. He was keeping over his pace, but he happened to do where Arnoux wanted to go.
Ferrari hat auch einen 4-Zylinder-Turbomotor in Vorbereitung, den man im nächsten Jahr eingesetzt hätte, wäre es zu einer Reduktion des Treibstofflimits von 220 auf 195 Liter gekommen. Sehr gutes Rennen von De Cesaris, der beide Ferrari-Fahrer hinter sich hält. Sie wissen, für einen italienischen Fahrer ist es immer sehr, sehr wichtig, dem zu Hause vor dem Fernsehschirm sitzenden Enzo Ferrari zu beweisen, dass er genauso schnell fahren kann wie seine Piloten in den Ferraris. Aber auf der Geraden ist der Ferrari einwandfrei schneller. Im Training hatte De Cesaris einen Dreher, einmal eine Kontroverse mit Rosberg. Arnoux hat sich verbremst, Alboreto wäre fast in den Wagen seines Teamkollegen hineingerutscht. Und der Vorsprung von Prost auf Lauda wird größer. 9,9 Sekunden nach der 32. Runde. Alain Prost 9,9 vor Lauda, 12,2 vor Piquet, 33 Sekunden vor Warwick, 50 vor De Angelis, 56 vor Senna, 58 vor Tambay, dann 1 Minute 23 vor Alboreto. Prost, Lauda, Piquet, Warwick, De Angelis und Senna. Erstmals jetzt die Differenz Prost, Lauda über 10 Sekunden. Genau 2 Sekunden zwischen Lauda und Piquet und deutlicher Rückstand bereits für Warwick, De Angelis und Ayrton Senna. ...24. Runde Prost, Lauda, Piquet, Warwick, Tambay und De Angelis. Das ist natürlich die Reihung rein im zweiten Lauf. In der Gesamtwertung, wie gesagt, Prost, Lauda, Piquet, Warwick, De Angelis, Senna, Tambay, Alboreto, De Cesaris, Arnoux, nur diese 10 noch in der gleichen Runde. Dahinter Patrese und Ghisani. Maxura ist 14. Maxura mit dem Aeros versucht das Tempo von Prost mitzugehen. Boxenstopp jetzt von Patrick Tambay. Lauda hat Alain Prost derzeit aus den Augen verloren. Hier wieder zurück zum Dreikampf zwischen Alboreto, De Cesaris und Arnoux, der um den 8. Platz geht. De Cesaris, Arnoux, Alboreto. Tom B wird gleich eingeholt. De Cesaris, Arnoux, Alboreto. Ui, jetzt haben Sie gesehen, dass Alboreto große Probleme gehabt hat, den ausbrechenden Ferrari wieder einzufangen und mit Gegeneinschlag zu korrigieren. De Cesaris ist sicher nicht sehr leicht zum Überholen, sonst hätte, glaube ich, René Arnoux schon längst angegriffen. Aber am nächsten ist er immerhin der Druid-Haarnadel an den Ligier Renault herangekommen. Keine sehr glückliche Saison bis jetzt bei Renault. Alain Prost, schon 3 Siege heuer für McLaren.
This amazing, just a bit of a flick at the front there. This amazing man, Alain Prost, and I use the word amazing advisedly. Because he started off the season with such a magnificent run of victories, and he's won 3 out of the 9 races that have been held so far with those other points places. And if he wins this race, he will certainly deserve to be champion. But it looks to me now as though Niki Lauda is starting to close. The gap was greater than it was. It's 2.37 seconds now, and I noticed that Alain Prost seemed to have a bit of a slide at the front, and Niki Lauda is gaining visibly on him now. Look at this, it was 2.37 seconds when this race lap started. We are on lap 27 now, and we're going to see a change of leadership, I predict, very shortly, and that will get Niki Lauda's tail up very high indeed as he goes past and passes his teammate and takes the lead. Niki Lauda, and he's putting away from Prost, who is going very slowly indeed. What sort of trouble is Alain Prost in? It can't be tires for the speed difference to be as dramatic as that. And Piquet takes him. Piquet's it's back into second place. Alain Prost has got a problem. It might be gearbox. It might be a turbo leak. It might be an intercooler problem. I don't know what it is. But now Sura has also passed Prost. And Sura, good as he is in the Arrows BMW, would not normally be passing Alain Prost if he hadn't got a very real race problem.
Yes, whatever Prost's problem is, there's nothing visible on the car. We can only speculate. I suspect he'll be coming to the pits as he rounds clearways. Now, we just have to hope, for the sake of the race, that it's something that they can fix fairly easily. If it's suspension orientated, of course, it's unlikely they can do anything about it now. The tyre change is routine anyway. They always do that when you come in. But Prost, yes, he's beckoning. He wants to talk to somebody because he's got to explain what the problem is. And it could possibly have been a puncture. That's the only thing I can think. Ah, no, that's John Barnard bending over the car, the designer of the McLaren, who should be a pretty happy man designing such a superior chassis. But no, the problem looks terminal. They're having a bit of a chat now. They're pushing the car forward. and I have a nasty feeling that Prost is going to take no more serious part in this race.
Yes, did you notice that Alain Prost's airline to his helmet was disconnected and has now been reconnected? No, that's the intercom system. Well, unless we're going to see Prost get back into the race quickly and do one of his incredible charges through the field, this has really rejuvenated the World Championship situation. Prost was leading by 10.5 points from his teammate Niki Lauda when this race began. I said and say again that even if Prost does not finish in the points and Lauda wins, Prost would still be leading the championship, and he's out of the race. Alain Prost is out, no points for Prost, and this is the challenge and the incentive for the man that you are looking at now, Niki Lauda, because if he can win this race and get 9 World Championship points, he would only be 1.5 points in the World Championship behind his teammate Alain Prost, and Prost's problem was gearbox. Gear change leakage problems, I suspect. Anyway, he was unable to change gear properly, and that accounted for the dramatic slowing of the car. I suspect that he was stuck in a high gear. And the Ferraris, while all this has been going on, have changed places, with Alboreto ahead of Arnoux. And this is the overall situation. The overall situation. Niki Lauda leading, Piquet second, Warwick third, De Angelis fourth, Senna in the World Championship points in his Hart turbo-powered Toleman again, and Patrick Tambay in the Renault in 6th place. There's Stefan Beloff, who has been lapped in his Tyrrell by Niki Lauda. And the Austrian now is on his 30th, which is half-distance lap in this 60-lap second part of the British Grand Prix. With Mansell out of the race, Prost out of the race, Jacques Lafitte out, Keke Rosberg out, several non-starters after that first 11-lap fracas, which notably affected the 2 Ram hearts of Philippe Alliot and Jonathan Palmer, both of which had very, very severe damage, both their drivers perfectly okay. And Niki Lauda, who has won 2 Grand Prix this year, in South Africa and France, looks as though he may be joining his teammate Alain Prost in making it 3, in which case the wonderfully successful McLarens would have won 6 out of 10 Grand Prix, but there's still a long way to go, and Nelson Piquet is still there, and there he is.
Yes, absolutely right. Nelson Piquet is the one man, in my opinion, who could put it over the McLarens and steal the World Championship from them. Now, Alain Prost, you may remember in the last Grand Prix in Dallas, created a carbon copy of his error when he had the World Championship sewn up the previous year in Zandvoort, and then allowed Nelson Piquet to come in and win. If you remember, he made a mistake which he shouldn't have done, and then his luck just turned horrible on him. And we said in Dallas that Sod's Law has a habit of doing this. Now, I see a nasty pattern of Sod's Law attacking Prost again. He tempted it by making his own mistake, and he's had one of his few mechanical breakdowns or difficulties of the whole season, has followed up immediately on his mistake. And things don't look terribly good for Prost, because if Lauda and or Piquet take the 9 points available for this race, all of a sudden Prost's extremely commanding position in the World Championship, already having 34.5 points, and another 9 in the bag at Dallas when he gave away, and there is Alain Prost, and he, I would think, will probably be thinking more about Dallas than today, because that's where he has personally created his own self-inflicted injuries, and his injuries at the moment are confined to him being on the sidelines while the others are out there scoring points.
Niki Lauda is the faster of the 2 lead cars at the present moment. He has increased his lead to just about 3 seconds over Nelson Piquet. These are the overall positions that you're looking at. Lauda leading Piquet, with Warwick in the Renault third, De Angelis, Senna and Tambay, and Lauda is easing away from Piquet.
Murray, I must contradict you there, because in fact, the last 4 laps, Piquet has been marginally catching Lauda. Not a lot. He was 3.5, 4 seconds behind him. And Piquet's harder compound tires as Lauda. There is Piquet. Now you watch this gap come down, because Piquet is beginning to assert himself. He's on similar tires. There goes Lauda under the bridge. There goes Piquet under the bridge, and the gap is definitely closer. So Nelson Piquet, possibly as the tire wear starts to change things, is asserting himself, or potentially, as I say, with these harder, more durable, longer-lasting tires.
Right, well, let's not have a public confrontation. The gap is 3.16 seconds, or was when this lap began. There is Piquet, and the gap at this point is 3.00 seconds. So 16 hundredths of a second have been taken out of Lauda's lead by Piquet from the start of that lap to the midpoint between Graham Hill and Surtees Bend. And here is Piquet in second place in this part and overall, chasing the overall race leader and the second part race leader, Nelson Piquet, with the gap closing, question mark. Into Sterling's. Fourth gear up into fifth, over the crest. Drop down a little bit into Clearways and Clark Curve. Niki Lauda is catching now the 2 Ferraris. He's about to lap Hoog Rotengatter. And as Piquet goes past, James is right. It's 2.61 seconds now between Lauda, the race leader, and Nelson Piquet. They both round Druids Hill Bend, and Lauda has taken Rotengatter, who is about to be passed by Nelson Piquet, and Niki Lauda is going to catch Alboreto, Arnoux and De Cesaris. There you just saw them. Now this could be Nelson Piquet's opportunity to close, because Niki Lauda's going to have a great deal of trouble in getting past the 2 Ferraris. I think that Nelson Piquet will very quickly pass Hoog Rotengatter. Indeed he does so as I talk to you. So he will be able to close the gap between himself and Niki Lauda, and he might even get past. We are on lap 34 out of 60. De Cesaris has not exactly made it easy for the Ferraris to get past him, because they're still behind him. So we're going to get a real roadblock now of 5 cars. Now there's De Cesaris, Alboreto and Arnoux, Niki Lauda the race leader, second place Nelson Piquet. This is now lap 35, and Lauda is almost up with Arnoux.
The interesting thing, we were watching Piquet around most of the corners then, is that Piquet looks very, very comfortable indeed. He is not using all the road and the curves. He's driving very smoothly and looks as if he's got something to spare, should it come down to the wire at the end of the race. Now Lauda, as Murray says, is going to have a lot of problems, because this battle that Lauda is now following, going through Hawthorns there, are going to be so busy arguing with each other that they might not notice Lauda coming in the mirrors. Lauda has caught them very quickly, and he's now already being held up. His first real opportunity to pass will be going into Paddock Bend. That's still 3 corners away. In the meantime, as he gets held up, Nelson Piquet should be getting closer.
7th, 8th and 9th, 1st and 2nd. Nelson Lauda pulls up and is past the first Ferrari, or is he? He's past René Arnoux. He's now up, he's past the 9th man. He's now going to close on Michele Alboreto. Is Arnoux going to let Nelson Piquet through? And there, Andre De Cesaris is passed by Alboreto, who goes up into 7th place. Down to 8th goes De Cesaris, who has got the leader behind him, who has passed the 9th place man, René Arnoux, who is followed by Nelson Piquet.
You've just been happy to witness the most spectacularly bad piece of driving by De Cesaris that you could really want to see, who either didn't notice Alboreto, and there goes Lauda nipping past, either didn't notice Alboreto, which is pretty unforgiving considering Alboreto had been right behind him for the last 20 laps or whatever, and so he really ought to know he's there, or else didn't want to notice him, because they were very lucky there wasn't a major accident. When the wheels rub, which they didn't on this occasion, cars fly in the air and turn over, which is very nasty, and they were lucky that the wheel only touched the side pod of the car and was able to bounce off. But really, De Cesaris should wake up, because that was not only bad driving, it was positively dangerous.
And Arnoux actually waved Nelson Piquet through. There is Arnoux. And what is the gap between Niki Lauda and Nelson Piquet now? The answer is 1.6 seconds. So Piquet has benefited thus far, and the 7th place man, Michele Alboreto, is still ahead of Niki Lauda, who has passed, as you know, De Cesaris and Arnoux. Arnoux has been passed by Piquet, and there is Piquet, ahead of De Cesaris, so he's got past the man who was most likely to hold him up. First and second, Nelson Piquet second, Niki Lauda first, both closing now on Michele Alboreto, and only 1.6 seconds in it at the beginning of this lap, or rather just at Druids, between Lauda there and Piquet there.
The awkward thing for Lauda there is Alboreto is going quickly enough on his own account, now that he's finally got past De Cesaris, that he will have to let Lauda through. Lauda will not find it easy to charge past and force his way past Alboreto. So he is now at the mercy of Alboreto's good graces as to whether he decides to spot him and let him through. In the meantime, he'll be feeling very uncomfortable as Piquet takes advantage of the situation and closes up.
And if Nelson Piquet catches and hypothetically gets past Niki Lauda, he's got to be about 7 seconds in front of him to win overall, because there's a gap of about 6 seconds on aggregate at the present moment between the race leader overall, Niki Lauda, who is chasing Alboreto here, who's in 7th place in this part of the race, and the 2nd place man, Nelson Piquet. So, the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto, the Italian, and through goes Niki Lauda. Now what's the gap between Lauda and Piquet, and is Piquet going to get past Alboreto any more easily than Niki Lauda did? As you see, Niki Lauda with 1 minute 13.9 is the fastest man on the circuit, still 1.6 seconds outside Didier Pironi's 1980 wind skirts on the car lap record, and this is Piquet's chance. And he's straight past Alboreto. It was easier for him to get past than it was for Lauda. Now Lauda comes through and completes the lap now. Piquet does so now, and the gap is 1.7 seconds. Lauda has improved his leadership by 1/10 of a second since I last took it. We're on lap 39 now.
Well, however comfortably or easily he's been driving in the race, because you can't sprint it at 11/10 all the way. Lauda now, you just watch him through these corners. He is on 11/10. Lauda is giving it everything that he's possibly got. He's using every inch of the road. Didn't use quite all of it then, but he's beginning to bounce on the curves. He's not getting ragged yet, but he's absolutely on the limit. He is using this as a psychological point where he can test Piquet to see if he does have the speed to get away. If he has, he'll keep this pressure up and to try and demoralise Piquet. If he finds that he gets 11/10 for 5 laps and Piquet is still behind him, he'll probably slow down, ease up, conserve his strength and drive a slightly different race and try and beat Piquet tactically. But at the moment, he's trying to make a break.
And he's coming through to complete lap 39 out of 60, leading overall and in this second part. The gap is 1.8 seconds.
Aber Niki Lauda möchte heuer alles tun, um vielleicht wirklich zum 3. Mal in seiner Karriere Weltmeister zu werden.
Twice a world champion, Niki Lauda. 21 victories in his career. What a record. Chasing and seemingly very successfully at the moment, Jackie Stewart's all-time World Championship points record of 360 points. Lauda already has 358.5. will get 9 for a win. But is Piquet going to let him? He's getting closer. That looks like less than 1.8 seconds to me visually, but you can never tell until you actually put the stopwatch on them, and that I will do when I actually see them on the circuit. They're coming now out of Stirling's. I'm going to do that very shortly. They burst into sight in the short circuit. Lauda, Piquet, and it's 1.9 seconds. The race order in this part of the race, you're looking at the battle for leadership between Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet in second position. In third place, it's still Derek Warwick, although we haven't seen him for some time. In fourth position, it is Elio De Angelis. In fifth place, it is Ayrton Senna. Sixth is Patrick Tambay. Seventh, and has been caught and lapped, is Michele Alboreto. Eighth is Andrea De Cesaris. Ninth is Rene Arnoux. And the positions overall were those which you just saw on the caption. That is to say, Lauda leading, Piquet second, Warwick third, De Angelis fourth, Senna fifth, and Tambay sixth.
And this is a marvellous battle up front, because I would say that neither of these drivers have been trying any harder at any point in the race. They're now winding each other up into a real head-to-head battle. I told you just now that Lauda was using every inch of the road and a bit more, and every ounce of strength, and Piquet has responded by doing the same. Watch him now, he's sliding the car, he's absolutely fully balanced, and the gap is, well, you can see the gap, it's almost negligible. Meanwhile, behind, Andrea De Cesaris, who I gave a bit of a rifting to for his completely inexplicable bad behaviour at Druids, as we saw when Alboreto went past him, is still behaving equally badly with Rene Arnoux, who's stuck behind him. He's weaving and balking and things, and really, when you're dicing for eighth place, when you're trying to protect a lead of a Grand Prix, you have a little bit more license for bad behaviour, but this really isn't good enough. There they go, round Druids, as Arnoux still stuck behind De Cesaris, who really needs to mature a little bit as a person before he can become a good driver.
Yes, and they both caught and passed Derek Warwick on the track to unlap themselves, but there's Derek Warwick, who is in third position in this part of the race, as again Rene Arnoux challenges Andrea De Cesaris, who is in eighth position. Rene Arnoux ninth, seventh ahead of both of them. Michele Alboreto and Derek Warwick staying with them in third place on the same lap, but almost a full lap ahead of them, only a car's length clear of Rene Arnoux, and Niki Lauda still leads. This is lap 42 in this rivetingly interesting 60 lap second part of the British Grand Prix, as the Ligier with its Renault engine, the Ferrari with its V6 turbo Ferrari engine, and the Renault-powered, of course, Renault of Warwick go round Druids Hill Bend together. Warwick past Arnoux. And Piquet, now you can compare the time difference and the visual gap between race leader that you've just seen, Niki Lauda, who's coming through to complete his 43rd lap, and Nelson Piquet. The gap I did have was 1.5 seconds, and it's 1.9 now. So Lauda is just easing away. That 11/10ths drive that James described is paying benefits of almost half a second, which is the increase of lead that he has over Piquet at the moment, compared with 2 laps ago, as Lauda comes up now to Mark Sura in the Arrows BMW to lap him. And Sura was the man who, were coming out of the pits, inadvertently blocked Arnoux.
Yes, it's a difficult time for Lauda. Both Lauda and Piquet, as I say, are on their absolute limit. And of course, Lauda is the guy who's got to make the hole through the back markers. You see what happens when you come up on a tail ender. He may reasonably legitimately not notice you immediately. And Joe was holding up Piquet, had to have a little look round, but he's successfully negotiated him. But in the normal way, what happens when you come up on a back marker, if you're the leader, he's not expecting you yet. He hasn't been, if he's being lapped for the first time. So he may take a while to see you. But once the leader's gone through, he then knows he's being lapped, so he's looking for the second guy. So in the normal way, the chap who's lying second gets the good deal when it comes to lapping back markers, and the chap in front gets the big disadvantage. So Lauda will be concentrating very hard on finding a way around back markers without taking any risks, because of course he's not going to win the race if he's not in it.
Well, there is Lauda, again being maintained between himself and Nelson Piquet. Overall, Derek Warwick, who told me just before this race began that he was going to be driving above all else for a finish, looks as though he's going to get one and is in third position overall, with Elio De Angelis fourth, Senna fifth, Toleman-Hart in sixth position. 5 different constructors in the top 6 places, both Renaults in point-scoring situations, which will be very welcome. Now, for those of you who are waiting on BBC One for the Great Little Railways programme, the news is that it has been postponed because of the delayed start of the British Grand Prix, with which we're obviously going to stay until the race finishes. And for those of you who are watching in Australia and Canada and South Africa, that may is confusing. But I'm telling you that because this race is being seen in some 40 countries all around the world, and that is a record for Grand Prix international television coverage, with Niki Lauda now on lap 46 out of 60, still leading Nelson Piquet.
Das wird größer, 1,6 Sekunden. Niki Lauda kann jetzt ein bisschen aufatmen, der ärgste Druck von Piquet ist weg. 56. Runde statt 0,9, also jetzt 1,6 Sekunden. Und der nächste Verfolger, Derek Warwick mit dem Renault, liegt 37 Sekunden zurück an dritter Stelle, ist also heute, glaube ich, für Niki Lauda kein Gegner mehr. Dann De Angelis 52, Senna 59 und Toleman-Hart 1,34. Eine Runde Rückstand für Alboreto, De Cesaris, Arnoux, 2 Runden Patrese, Ginzani, Belov, 3 Runden Sura. Belov mit dem einzigen Saugmotor im Feld liegt an 12. Stelle, möglicherweise aber außerhalb der Wertung. Piquet einwandfrei in Schwierigkeiten. 3,1 Sekunden jetzt der Rückstand. Nelson Piquet wird jetzt immer langsamer. Ich glaube, dass die Taktik von Niki Lauda heute wieder einmal die absolut richtige war. Es gibt ja wenig Rennfahrer oder wahrscheinlich keinen anderen, der ein Rennen so lesen kann, wie es Niki Lauda tut, der eine derartige Vorstellungskraft hat und genau weiß, was in jeder Phase des Rennens passieren kann. Niki Lauda hat möglicherweise mit seiner Tempoverschärfung dafür gesorgt, dass Nelson Piquet, der das Tempo natürlich mitgehen musste, Schwierigkeiten mit seinem Brabham-BMW bekommen hat. Vielleicht ein Problem mit dem Motor, vielleicht auch mit dem Getriebe. Vielleicht fährt Nelson Piquet jetzt auf einen sicheren 2. Platz. Überrundet Patrick Tambay. Damit nur noch 5 in der gleichen Runde. Lauda, Piquet, Warwick, De Angelis und Senna. Und jetzt sind es bereits 4,5 Sekunden, das heißt, pro Runde gewinnt Niki Lauda im Augenblick 1,5 Sekunden Vorsprung gegenüber Piquet. außerhalb der Punkteränge Alboreto, De Cesaris, Arnoux, Patrese, Kinzani und Bellof. 48. Runde im zweiten Lauf, das heißt 12 Runden noch bis zur Zielflagge im Großen Preis von England. In der Gesamtwertung sind wir bereits in der 59. Runde. Und der Vorsprung Niki Laudas auf Nelson Piquet wird immer größer. 5,6 Sekunden jetzt. 1,1 Sekunden sind es also in dieser Runde mehr geworden. 5,5 Sekunden der Vorsprung Niki Laudas auf Nelson Piquet, den Sie hier ganz unten auf Ihrem Bildschirm gesehen haben. Dazwischen der überrundete Derek Voigt und der deutsche Stefan Bellof. Bellof also jetzt 4 Runden zurück. Und nur noch 5 in der gleichen Runde. Piquet neben Stefan Bellof. Bellof macht sich große Hoffnungen, nächstes Jahr einen Tyrrell Ford Turbo zu fahren. Niki Lauda schnellste Runde in der 57. mit 1:13,191. Das ist ein Schnitt von 206 Kilometer pro Stunde. 1:13,191. Wie verträgt sich das mit dem offiziellen Rundenrekord, den hier Didier Pironi vor 4 Jahren bereits aufgestellt hat? 1:12,368. Also Niki Lauda noch 8 Zehntelsekunden über dem Rundenrekord von Didier Pironi. Allerdings, Sie müssen bedenken, damals fuhren die Autos mit Schürzen, mit allen aerodynamischen Hilfsmitteln. Seither hat man ja die Schürzen dann verboten und auch den flachen Unterboden eingeführt. Runde im zweiten Lauf, das heißt 10 Runden noch bis zur Zielflagge im Großen Preis von England. Und wenn der McLaren von Niki Lauda noch die letzten 10 Runden durchhält, dann würde Niki Lauda heute seinen 3. Sieg in dieser Saison erreichen und sich in der Weltmeisterschaft bis auf 1,5 Punkte an seinen führenden Teamkollegen Alain Prost heranschieben. Nelson Piquet würde mit einem 2. Platz 6 Punkte dazu gewinnen und seinen Rückstand gegenüber Alain Prost ebenfalls verkleinern. De Angelis unglaublich beständig, heute 4. Wenn er so weiterfährt, bekommt er wieder 3 Punkte für die Weltmeisterschaft, aber zum Gewinnen reicht für Lotus eben im Augenblick nicht. Der erste Lotus-Sieg seit Elio De Angelis im Feldweg vor genau 2 Jahren, als er Keke Rosberg in diesem Fotofinish bezwungen hat, scheint also doch noch einige Zeit zu brauchen. Die Musikfans bitte ich nochmals um Entschuldigung, dass die von Ihnen sicherlich sehnsüchtig erwartete Sendung Lieben Sie Klassik aufgrund des verspäteten Brands-Hatch-Beginns oder aufgrund des zweiten Starts des englischen Grand Prix verschoben werden musste, aber ich bitte auch die Musikfans unter Ihnen Daumen zu halten, denn vielleicht erleben wir jetzt in einer knappen Viertelstunde einen neuerlichen klassischen Sieg von Niki Lauda. Rückstand von Piquet bereits 7,6 Sekunden. Oh ja, da gibt es dichten Verkehr. Im Mittelfeld eine Reihe von Überrundungsmanövern, in die Elio De Angelis jetzt verwickelt ist. Vor ihm fährt René Arnoux. Gesamtwertung De Angelis 4. und Arnoux 9. De Cesaris, Arnoux, De Angelis. Handzeichen von Arnoux. Überhol mich, war sehr fair von René Arnoux. Warum sollte auch einen Fahrer, der eine Runde vor ihm liegt, aufhalten? Obwohl das Arnoux nicht immer macht. Ein Fahrer, der im Zweikampf sehr, sehr hart zu überholen ist. 8,7 Sekunden zwischen Lauda und Piquet, dann 45 Sekunden zurück Warwick, 59 De Angelis, 1 Minute 04 Senna und eine Runde zurück Tambay, Alboreto, De Cesaris, Arnoux, 2 Runden Patrese, Ginzani, 3 Runden Belloff und Zura. Wir haben
And then Elio De Angelis, followed by Arnoux and Senna, is Lauda leading. In second place Piquet, third position is still Warwick, in fourth position it is De Angelis. Don't forget that René Arnoux is a lap adrift. So, Lauda, Piquet, Warwick, De Angelis, Senna.
Yes, we've got 2 battles going on here, because we've got De Angelis and Senna who are fighting for 4th place, and in fact, and there goes De Angelis, who squeezed past De Cesaris to lap him, incidentally, because the other pair is the De Cesaris-Arnoux battle, which is a lap down and battling for 8th place. So it's 2 battles all tangled up into one.
So Senna is now right almost in the wheel tracks of Elio De Angelis in the JPS Lotus. There he goes. The battle for 4th position. And a great tribute to Ayrton Senna. We expect this sort of performance from Elio De Angelis. 4th position because he's done so well, so consistently during the season, and is after all in 3rd place in the World Championship. Senna we knew was brilliant when we watched him in Formula Ford 1600 and 2000, and then last year become the British Formula 3 champion. But he has taken to Formula 1 in the Toleman with its low-budget Brabham-Hart designed and built turbo engine like a duck to water, and you can see that he's closing up in the Toleman-Hart now on Elio De Angelis, who took Andrea De Cesaris to lap him so concisely on the previous lap, and I think that Ayrton Senna is going to move up to 4th position very shortly. That's car number 19, the Toleman, with the white and red body top. The man who finished 2nd and got past his lap at Monaco, and most people think would have won had the race gone another lap. Indeed, he certainly would have. 6th in South Africa, 7th in Canada, 8th in Belgium. So he already has 2 World Championship finishes to give him 4 points, because he only got half points at Monaco because of the shortened race. Challenging Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special Lotus for 4th position, with ahead of them Niki Lauda now on lap 55, followed by Nelson Piquet, 3rd Derek Warwick, 4th and 5th the battle that you see, and in 6th position it's Patrick Tambay, who has been lapped by the leader. Now watch, this is where Senna could, and he does, go through on the inside to take De Angelis in exactly the same way that De Angelis took De Cesaris a couple of laps ago, and surely Elio must have been ready for that, but ready or not, he had to give way. And look at the gap now that Ayrton Senna, with his 4-cylinder Hart turbo engine punching away behind him, has pulled out over the new 5th place man Elio De Angelis. So in 4th position, Ayrton Senna.
Yes, and Senna coming up, just moving over to the inside line now to outbrake De Angelis into paddock bend. Senna's car is handling a lot better. He actually had to hit the brakes in Hawthorns on the last lap, and he's got a lot more grip, but he just swept by there. He had the line, and in fairness, De Angelis didn't make a silly fight of it. I think he realised that Senna had got into superior things,
and Piquet seems to be in trouble. He's just passed the pits, going very slowly into Paddock Bend. Nelson Piquet is going very slowly and has been passed by Derek Warwick. who moves up into second position in the Renault in this part of the race. And don't forget that Warwick is third overall, and it looks as though he could finish second overall if Piquet can't keep going quickly enough to prevent the gap between himself and the new second place man Derek Warwick building. There is the, for whatever reason, stricken Brabham, obviously going very slowly indeed in comparison with the speed it normally goes at this point of the circuit, which is to say into the left-hander at Surtees. And I think Nelson Piquet's race is almost run. That's an oil flag out there, and the reigning world champion looks as though again he is going to fail to finish a Grand Prix, which means to say that the McLarens for the rest of the season are going to be in an even stronger position, because it really did look, as Piquet pulls over, definitely his race is finished. He may be driving, but he's not driving at racing speeds, and he's keeping right to the inside of the circuit as Niki Lauda now progresses on his 57th lap with 3 to go at the end of this one, on his way to his third victory of 1984, and to move himself not only into the all-time highest ever World Championship point scorer, but to within 1.5 points of the World Championship leader, his teammate Alain Prost.
Yes, and well, Niki Lauda, McLaren's obviously will be very happy about that, because that puts their 2 drivers clear in front of the World Championship. It really is a pity for the championship itself that Nelson Piquet should go out of the race so late on. The 6 points that he would have got had his car survived just another 3 or 4 laps in a healthy state would have been. And Piquet is in fact limping around. He's keeping going, hoping to get a finish, hoping possibly to sneak a point. But I really think that he's struggling. So he's still alive. He's behind Lauda, just coming through bottom bare. But it really isn't. There is Nelson Piquet. He's going very slowly, but he may finish. He's currently in 5th place. So can he hold on? I doubt it, to get a point. But it really is a shame that we don't have him right up there mixing it at the top of the championship table.
And now you see Derek Warwick overall is in second position. He's going to get that high points position that he was desperately striving for, with Elio De Angelis in third, Senna in fourth, Piquet down to fifth, Torbay in sixth, and I think Torbay will move up into fifth position by catching and passing Nelson Piquet very shortly. And Elio De Angelis is actually slowing. His engine sounds very rough indeed. Indeed, Elio De Angelis is almost stopping as he goes round Surtees to join the Grand Prix circuit, as Lauda goes on his way, speed undiminished. Well, it must be going a bit slower, but only he will be conscious of it at the stopwatch. There is De Angelis, and you can see how much slower he is going, and René Arnoux is going to drive past him, and he does so. So we've now got 2 very sick cars on the circuit, both of them hoping for a points finish. Niki Lauda is on his 59th and last lap, but 1. Overall, Lauda is of course leading from Warwick quite substantially by some 9 seconds overall. Elio De Angelis was in third, but it looks to me as though Ayrton Senna is going to move up into third position, and it's going to be anybody's guess about who finishes in the top 6. Indeed, Senna is now number 19 in the Toleman-Hart in third position. Lauda clearing the left-hander at Stirling's to come through and finish his 59th and start his last victorious lap, if he goes the full 2.61 miles at Brands Hatch, and that will give him his third British Grand Prix victory. This quiet Austrian, who is enormously popular with the British crowd. He won in 1976 for Ferrari. He won in 1982 for McLaren when it had the 4DFB engine, and it looks, problems accepted, as though he's going to finish for McLaren with the McLaren-inspired tag engine, and that is going to be an incredible record for the new tag V6 Turbo, because it will have won 6 of this year's 10 Grand Prix. There is the second place man overall, Derek Warwick. Ayrton Senna is now third in this part of the race and overall. De Angelis is still holding on in 4th place. Nelson Piquet is still there in 5th place but has been lapped. And Patrick Tambay is in 6th position. And Lauda is now about to lap Elio De Angelis as he comes through into clearways for the last time.
And Senna has been catching Warwick hand over fist. And if Warwick's in any sort of trouble, he could catch him before the end of the lap.
Lauda wins. Niki Lauda waves his hand, takes the checkered flag, and has won the British Grand Prix for the 3rd time in his career. To move within 1.5 points of leadership, and Patrick Tambay's engine or something has blown and he's out of the race on the very last lap. And there is the fire extinguisher. It's a turbo. It must be a turbo. And Patrick Tambay knows the signs, gets the marshal. And here is Warwick finishing in 2nd place overall in the British Grand Prix. And that is Derek Warwick's second place of the year. He's back in the points. And the World Championship position is now really coming alive, with Alain Prost still in the lead, but with Niki Lauda in 2nd place, only 1.5 points behind him. McLaren, of course, in the Constructors' Championship, even further ahead than they were before, but subject to official confirmation on aggregate after the first 11 laps plus the subsequent 60 laps. Niki Lauda, there he is, has won the British Grand Prix. Derek Warwick, 2nd in the Renault. Ayrton Senna, a fine 3rd position in the Toleman-Hart. 4th, more World Championship points. His 9th finish in the points in 10 Grand Prix. Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special. 5th, Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari. 6th, Patrick Tambay. 7th, Piquet out of the points then. And in 8th position, René Arnoux. But there is the update now. Victory for Lauda, Warwick 2nd, Senna 3rd, De Angelis 4th, Alboreto 5th, and Arnoux 6th. So, both Ferraris in the top 6 World Championship scoring places, as Lauda and Ghinzani drive into the garage for the post-race scrutineering. And Derek Warwick coasting at the end of his rundown lap in the Renault. He will be absolutely delighted after a string of failures for a variety of reasons, some of them due to the car, and in the case of Dallas due to Derek when he went off the circuit when challenging Nigel Mansell for the lead. But anyway, Derek Warwick is clearly back.
Macht also 367,5 Punkte. Im Bild haben wir Elio De Angelis, der also Pech gehabt hat, in der letzten Runde Benzin ausgegangen, dadurch vielleicht den 3. Platz verloren, aber immer noch an 4. Stelle und 3 Punkte für die Weltmeisterschaft gerettet. 10. Lauf zum 9. Mal, also in den Punkten. Links haben die Nelson Piquet, hinter ihm Alboreto, neben ihm mit dem Rücken zur Kamera René Arnoux, rechts die Glückwünsche für Ayrton Senna, das ist der Fahrer mit dem gelben Sturzhemd, der ist von seinen Mechanikern auf die Schultern gehoben und weggetragen wird, ob aus Freude oder ob er wegen Erschöpfung, weiß ich nicht, auf alle Fälle Ayrton Senna, ein sehr, sehr glücklicher Fahrer heute in Brands Hatch. Auf dem Siegerpodest Niki Lauda, Derek Warwick und Ayrton Senna. In der Weltmeisterschaft fehlen Niki Lauda nur noch 1,5 Punkte auf Alain Prost. 3. ist De Angelis, 4. Arnoux, 5. Rosberg, 6. Warwick, 7. Piquet, der heute die Chance gehabt hätte, weit nach vorne zu kommen. Dann Alboreto, dann Senna und dann Tambay. In der offiziellen FISA-Rangliste sind die Punkte der Tyrrell-Fahrer gestrichen worden. Martin Brandl hätte 8 Punkte und Stefan Below hätte 5. Alain Prost also noch als Weltmeisterschaftsführender zum großen Preis von Deutschland auf dem Hockenheimring, der heute in 2 Wochen stattfinden wird, aber wenn dort alles klappt, Niki Lauda vielleicht als Führender der Weltmeisterschaft heute in 4 Wochen zum großen Preis auf dem Österreichring. 1,5 Punkte zwischen Prost und Lauda. Und das ist der Siegerpokal, der jetzt auf Niki Lauda wartet, sein dritter Sieg im englischen Grand Prix auf dieser extremen Naturrennstrecke von Brands Hatch. Ich glaube, hier zählt ein Grand Prix-Sieg wieder mehr als auf diesen verrückten Straßenkursen von Nordamerika, wo sehr vieles eine Frage von Glück oder Pech war. Niki Lauda mit einem genau getimten Rennen, mit der schnellsten Runde im Rennen übrigens, Sieger im großen Preis von England. Was passiert jetzt? Die Autos werden gewogen, mehr als 640 Kilo dürfen sie nicht wiegen. Der Tyrrell von Stefan Bello, vielleicht haben Sie es bemerkt, war übrigens nicht an der Box. Der Verdacht, dass beim Boxenstopp immer Bleikugeln eingefüllt werden, konnte zwar von der FISA nicht bewiesen, aber von Ken Tyrrell auch nicht absolut entkräftet werden. Abgeschleppt wird der Wagen von Patrick Tambay. Hat Pech gehabt heute, sein Teamkollege Warwick war etwas glücklicher und ist Zweiter geworden. Naja, wäre dieser große Preis von England über die Ursprungsdistanz von 75 Runden gelaufen, ich weiß nicht, welche Fahrer da noch Probleme mit dem Treibstoff bekommen hätten. Auf alle Fälle für Niki Lauda alles gut gegangen, sein 151. Eine Viertelmillion Zuschauer hat diesen Grand Prix miterlebt. Niki Lauda, Derek Voigt und Ayrton Senna, die ersten drei kommen von der Ehrenrunde zurück. Derek Voigt überglücklich, Niki Lauda wie immer ein gefasster, nicht überschäumender Sieg, auch wenn ich sicher bin, dass ihm dieser heutige Sieg sehr, sehr viel geben muss. 151 große Preise. Niki Lauda wird nach der Siegerehrung, so rasch er kann, zurück nach Ibiza fliegen. Er hat nach den vielen Rennen der letzten Jahre, nach den vielen Testfahrten, glaube ich, auch das Recht auf ein paar Tage Urlaub bei der Familie. Wird nach Ibiza fliegen, wird also heute noch zu Hause ankommen. Gratulation vom Teamchef Ron Dennis, der sich im Freitagtraining sehr gefreut hat, als Alain Prost plötzlich die Zeit von Niki Lauda verbessert hat. Aber Ron Dennis freut sich jetzt mit Niki Lauda. Der ehemalige Mechaniker von Jochen Rindt hat mit Niki Lauda auch schon 5 Grand Prix-Siege feiern können. Ja, und dann geht es für Niki Lauda noch sehr arbeitsreich weiter. Freitag und Samstag Testfahrten in Zandvoort bereits wieder für den großen Preis von Holland, der dann nach Österreich stattfinden wird. Niki Lauda, Ayrton Senna und Derek Voigt. Hinter Niki Lauda sehen Sie den nicht unumstrittenen FISA-Präsidenten Jean-Marie Balestre. Bei ihm hat Niki Lauda am Mittwoch vorgesprochen, um eine sicherere Formel 1 zu erreichen. Es wird sicherlich noch sehr oft und sehr lange über diese Vorschläge diskutiert werden müssen. Wie viel sich Niki Lauda aus Pokalen macht, wissen Sie, glaube ich, mittlerweile, aber ein Sieg im englischen Grand Prix, ein Pokal auf Brands Hatch, das zählt viel. Derek Voigt verfehlte nur um einen Platz den ersten Sieg eines britischen Fahrers in Brands Hatch, aber dieser eine Platz ist von Niki Lauda belegt, dem populärsten und erfolgreichsten Grand Prix-Fahrer unserer Zeit. Wie gesagt, ab heute nach Punkten der erfolgreichste Grand Prix-Fahrer der Geschichte. Fairerweise muss man dazu sagen, Niki Lauda 151 Grand Prix-Rennen, Jackie Stewart 99. Links Warwick, rechts Senna.
The national anthem of the winning entrance, it is the British national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen.
Meine Damen und Herren, das war's aus Brands Hatch. Nächster Grand Prix für Sie heute in 14 Tagen während den Olympischen Spielen von Los Angeles, der große Preis von Deutschland auf dem Hockenheimring, dann ist Zeltweg, und mit der Siegerhymne für Niki Lauda und das McLaren-Team darf ich mich von Ihnen auf Brandside verabschieden und haben Sie noch einen recht schönen Sonntag.
Seu nome, Jackie Stewart. Toca o hino nacional inglês em homenagem ao concorrente que é a McLaren Internacional, portanto um concorrente inglês.
Tocará a seguir com certeza o hino austríaco.
E já agora o brasileiro também, que é para dar samba.
O brasileiro não dá direito.
Não dá direito. Não há direito então. E está Senna, contente, a mão direita enfaixada, mas ele não tinha nada na mão. Ele levanta agora o braço de Niki Lauda. Há uma diferença de...
Um veterano piloto que está ao centro, Niki Lauda, esse extraordinário piloto, um jovem piloto, estreia este ano na Fórmula 1. E estamos a aproximar-nos do final da nossa transmissão, que foi efetuada diretamente aqui no circuito de Brabham, em Inglaterra, o Grande Prémio Britânico a contar para o Campeonato do Mundo de 10ª prova. Uma vitória de Niki Lauda, que aqui surge em primeiro plano quando escuta o hino do seu país.
35 anos, a veterania de Niki, 11 menos do que o seu companheiro do lado esquerdo, Ayrton Senna. Niki Lauda, agora a 1,5 pontos de Alain Prost, entornou na equipa da McLaren. E vai haver uma grande guerra dentro de 15 dias em Hockenheim, e nós, logicamente, lá estaremos para todas essas informações. Vai ser uma grande corrida, e num circuito em que os dois homens da McLaren irão dispor de material que poderá ser absolutamente vitorioso.
Espectadores da Rádio e Televisão Portuguesa, aqui ficam as últimas imagens, é o pódio, a cerimónia do champanhe. Esperemos que esta transmissão lhes tenha agradado. O Domingos Piedade e eu próprio tivemos muito gosto de estar aqui convosco. Até daqui a 15 dias em Hockenheim. Para todos, muito boa tarde. Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
The British Grand Prix. There's a delighted Derek Warwick with his wife Rhonda and his little daughter on his arm, and he can feel very pleased with his second place because it ends a long drought of championship points for Derek Warwick. Prince Michael of Kent congratulates Niki Lauda, Jean-Marie Balesque congratulates Ayrton Senna, Derek Warwick in the picture as well. 3 victors, first, second and third, for Lauda, for Warwick and for Senna, and a splendid and exciting British Grand Prix.
Niki Lauda, his 3rd win at Brands Hatch and 3rd victory this year. You must be very pleased with that drive, Vicky.
The car was going very well. I had no problem, so therefore I could win the race.
What about when you saw your teammate go out? Did you worry about the same mechanical problem with your car?
No, not really, because some things can go wrong here or the other car. I certainly was not happy when he stopped, but I mean, if he stops, I'm happy that I can win.
Niki, personally, how do you feel about being the driver that has scored more Grand Prix points than anyone else in history, passing Jackie Stewart with these 9 points? It must be very rewarding to you.
It's more rewarding than 9 points to you, but I'm certainly happy to have the most points.
And the championship is very close now.
That's right, that's important.
A great team rivalry.
That's right.
Congratulations, Niki. Thank you very much.